Heyo. You ever stare up at the sky and picture, what if? What if one tiny little thing had gone just a little differently? Well, then everything would be different. Yeah, Doctor Who fans have been doing a lot of that lately. What could have been? But unfortunately, most of us don't have time machines, so the past stays the past. I'm gonna sit up now because I've been staring at a phallic cloud for too long. Yes, Doctor Who. I'm sure you've heard of it, but just in case you haven't and you're watching this video for some reason, I'm trying to make my videos more beginner-friendly, so here's a quick rundown. Doctor Who is a show about an alien with two hearts called the Doctor, or Doctor Who if they're feeling spicy, who travels through time and space in a ship called the TARDIS, which is bigger on the inside. Accompanying the Doctor is a companion who is statistically likely to be a roughly 19-year-old girl from modern-day London, and their trusty sonic screwdriver, a tool which in no way resembles a screwdriver. This is like a custom one I got when I was a kid. I used to have real ones, but I couldn't find any of them. Sometimes there's a male companion there too, who the Doctor clearly doesn't like as much as the female one and pays less attention to. Every episode, the TARDIS crew lands somewhere new and go on an adventure. Usually this adventure involves interacting with the locals, learning their problems, and finding ways to solve them, which typically involves battling aliens. The Doctor does not like it when people are exploited or oppressed, and fights for the downtrodden when no one else will. Of course, this is all a great vehicle for the writers to insert political subtext within their stories. The Doctor has many foes who want to see them dead, but none have killed them more than Christmas. When the Doctor sees snow or hears a Christmas carol, their likelihood of regenerating skyrockets by 1000%. Speaking of, when the Doctor sustains too much bodily harm, they can regenerate and carry on like nothing happened. This is what has allowed the show to keep going for so long. That, and it costs £50 per episode to produce. If you're a longtime viewer of my channel, you'll know that I've made more videos about Doctor Who than any other topic at this point. Most of my videos have been about the ongoing controversy surrounding the show, that being the fact that it's dead. People are saying right now it died last year, but they were also saying it died in 2024, and in 2020, and 2018, and 2017, 2014, 2010, 1996, 1989, 1985, 1981. Really, it's been dead ever since that Bill Hartnell bloke left. Yes, people have been saying Doctor Who is dead since the beginning. That being said, recently those death rumors have admittedly started to feel a little truer. Let's rewind the clocks back a few years. The show was already in a shaky place following the controversial decisions made by showrunner Chris Chibnall, ratings were not at their best, and a hiatus seemed more likely than ever. But when things were at their most dire, a white knight appeared on the horizon. Russell T Davies! The man who had revived the show back in 2005 and helmed its most popular era. When the show needed him most, he was coming back along with a new production house, Bad Wolf Studios, and in addition to that, the BBC secured a deal with Disney to inject the show with a new lease of life, an influx of cash, and theoretically, a bigger audience than ever before. And yet, fast forward to today, and Disney has pulled out of the deal, ratings have slumped, and the lead actor Ncuti Gatwa has abruptly exited after only being the Doctor for a meager year and a half. Truth be told, I can't remember the last time I saw all the fandom's optimism deflate in such a short span of time. We went from the show is entering another renaissance to the show is deader now than it's ever been. The circumstances under which I'm making this video are radically different from the last Doctor Who video I made. Back then, my stance that Russell's return was a bad thing was not as popular of an opinion to hold. That video has some of the longest and most passionate hate comments I've ever received, but frankly, I don't expect this video to be very controversial at all. Before I get started, I just want to say that I'm not blaming all the issues with Series 15 on Russell T Davies. There are larger issues with modern TV production and corporate culture that affected it. However, this season in particular, to me, is a case study in lost potential. So what went so wrong with Series 15 that it has seemingly derailed the show in a way that no other season, not even any of the Chibnall-era ones, could manage? Are you sitting comfortably? No, really, are you? This is going to take a while. For quite some time now, the Doctor Who fandom has been damaged. Doctor Who Twitter, for instance, is kind of an incredibly toxic place. If you have a negative opinion about the show, someone will attack you. If you have a positive opinion about the show, someone will attack you. Things have kind of died down in recent months, luckily, but I can't tell if that's because it's actually gotten less toxic or just less active. And if you're wondering how I know all this despite not having a Twitter account, it's because I secretly do. A year ago, I went undercover. I specifically wanted to learn how Doctor Who Twitter operates by stirring the pot, so I created an account called Spicy Doctor Who Takes Every Day with the specific goal of politely causing disagreement. Most of my posts were actual opinions of mine, some were just rage bait, not gonna lie. Some of those posts circulated pretty far around Doctor Who Twitter, and I like to think that I now know a little more about how this fandom operates than I did before. I also know just how mean you guys can get. My last video already surrounded all the nitty-gritty concerning how to criticize a show like this, so I'm not going to repeat myself. If you haven't seen that video, it's not mandatory for watching this one, but just to briefly summarize it, I believe Doctor Who has been creatively stuck in the same place for decades now, owing to the cliquey nature of how it's run, and if it wants to survive, it needs fresh blood and fresh ideas. Even though Doctor Who can get away with bending the rules from time to time, it still requires verisimilitude in its storytelling, and writing stories that are pure nonsense or self-contradictory does not make for an engaging viewing experience. I don't care about the line of salt the Doctor drew at the edge of the universe, please stop bringing it up. The way the writers integrate political messaging into their stories has become increasingly clunky and in some cases problematic, despite seemingly good intentions from them. And no, the show is not bad now because it's woke. If you came to this video hoping that's the angle I'm going to come at this from, sorry to disappoint you. It's kind of always been woke, though. I think that covers pretty much all of my bases. We might as well jump straight into the latest season, which kicks off with... Joy to the world, the Lord is come. So first up, we have another Christmas special penned by former showrunner Stephen Moffat. For most of New Who's run, the Christmas specials have been filmed roughly 6 months before they aired. But to give you an indication of how different this era's production timeline was, this special was filmed before Ncudi's first Christmas special had even aired.
This is your second Christmas episode, so I feel like you can compare and contrast.
I know, second Christmas before the first ones came out. It is a brain scramble.
This episode has a genuinely great opening scene, seeing the Doctor appearing throughout random moments of human history, with a tray carrying a...
ham and cheese toasty and a pumpkin latte. Ham and cheese toasty and a pumpkin latte. Ham and cheese toasty and a pumpkin latte.
Turns out he's landed his TARDIS in a time hotel with doors to all kinds of moments throughout history, and he's caught on to a sinister plot.
Ham and cheese toasty and a pumpkin latte. Oh, hello. Okay, you, yes. Good work, keep him covered.
There was a time in the history of Doctor Who when time travel was implied to be rare, like only a few select species had access to that kind of technology. But now fucking everyone has that shit. They're putting it in the hotels, for Christ's sake. And that's a genuinely insane business practice, by the way. I mean, anyone can have access to time travel for the price of a hotel room. Do you know how many paradoxes your guests are about to create? At the same time, you gotta love a setting like this. It does make for an energetic episode.
Why is there always an extra door in your hotel room, and why is it always locked? Because that is the way to the Time Hotel.
Have you ever noticed how many times in a hotel room there's another door?
Yeah.
And it's locked. What has happened is in the far future, the human race develops time travel, and the whole hotel chains realise they've got a lot of unsold rooms they could have a second go at back in history.
And if that wasn't already a Moffat-y enough setting for an episode, things get more Moffat-y still when it turns out that Villain Guard are the baddies of the episode. For those who are unaware, Villain Guard has been a long-running staple of Moffat's time on the show. It was referenced in the first story he ever wrote,
Weapon Factories of Villain Guard.
the last story he wrote for his era,
The weapon forges of Villain Guard.
and again in Boom.
The Villain Guard algorithm.
Turns out they're planning to use the oldest door in the Time Hotel to plant a starseed, then use another door to come back a few million years later, by which time it will have bloomed into a fully blown star, which can be used as an energy source.
Pop your kids in one time zone, walk along the corridor to another time zone, thousands of years later, ding ding ding, you just microwave the star.
Honestly, it's not a bad plan. My only question is how this easily exploitable time hotel has not had more bad actors before this point. I feel like you guys are just asking for people to abuse the whole time travel component of your establishment, honestly. The day gets saved by Joy, the Doctor's one-off companion throughout the episode. She's a woman who lost her mum years ago during COVID and has regretted not being with her ever since.
She died on Christmas Day. On Christmas Day! And I say goodbye in an iPad because of the rules! She died alone!
But luckily, the Vilengard computer interface system, which is connected with the star, saves copies of all the people that it kills into its hard drive.
I'm part of the star now, sir. My consciousness has been uploaded to the Vilengard communication interface.
You're inside the star.
Yes, sir.
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 You're inside the star.
Yes, sir.
You're inside the...
So Joy is able to merge with it, thus merging with all the dead people.
Joy, the star seed.
It's in me now.
Joy, you will burn. You will die.
Be silly. I'm not dying. I'm changing.
And then she merges with her dead mom, and together they become the Star of Bethlehem.
Joy to the world!
Only on Doctor Who. I assume Christians would have been in uproar about this if they still watched the show. Now, it does strike me that the conclusion of the story is very similar to the conclusion of his last story, Boom, in that Vilengard are the villains and they've been killing people and uploading their consciousness to a database, but then those very same dead people use the power of love to take control of the database and thwart Vilengard.
Kiss, kiss.
In fact, now that I think about it, how many episodes of Doctor Who has Moffat written where the plot revolved around copies of dead people being uploaded to a hard drive somewhere?
What have you done?
Saved her.
Because by my count, he's done it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times now. Listen, it had a good run, but it's time to move on from this idea, Stephen. Also, what happened with the CGI here? Did they run out of time on this? Like, what is this? I only bring it up because we know this era has money and the CGI usually looks good, but there's just a bunch of shots throughout this season that look like they weren't finished for some reason. That being said, say what you will about Moffat, but he actually ties up his loose ends. He even integrates the locations we briefly saw at the beginning of the episode into the climax by having the Doctor make use of them to open a door he needs to get through.
Now the weather holds. Why are you taking that equipment?
Because it was there.
He didn't have to bring these locations back, but he did anyway just so that they'd get some payoff, and it feels rewarding as an audience member when it feels like the writer actually cares about that. Russell. On the other hand, the episode's weakest aspect is its actual plot. Take this scene. The Doctor has a few seconds to disarm a weapon in a briefcase or else Joy will die.
Please enter your 4-digit security code, or the current case holder will be disintegrated.
How does he manage to pull this off? Well, his future self comes in and then says the combination.
7214. 7214.
Who are you?
Me. Oh, okay, good.
This means that the combination effectively came from nowhere. He knows it because he saw himself say it. This is a bootstrap paradox.
Google it.
Now, the show has become oddly reliant on bootstrap paradoxes in recent years, and maybe I could give it a pass every now and again, but there's a reason that this is considered the lowest form of time travel writing. Instead of coming up with a clever solution to this problem, you just bootstrap paradoxed your way out of it. It's not interesting to watch. Stephen's signature brand of cringy dialogue is also back in action here.
You were being mansplained by a briefcase.
In all candor, the best part of this episode is when the Doctor gets stranded on Earth and has to wait a year there for another door to the Time Hotel to open. And during this time, he bonds with Anita, who works at the hotel.
I'm not kidding. Can't move if you're looking at them.
What a rubbish.
And whilst it's short, it's genuinely sweet. Maybe the reason I like this so much is because it feels like it actually takes its time and commits to fleshing out its characters. No barrages of expository dialogue or chase scenes or surprise villain reveals, just character work, something this era could do with a great deal more of.
Blockage in 28.
Is this armed?
That is genuinely funny. On that note, the 15th Doctor is at his best here in my opinion. You really take for granted how important the little moments are for a character like him until they're missing. The only reason he even lands in the Time Hotel is because he's looking for a place with warm milk, and once he gets it, he almost leaves without even realizing where he is.
Refreshments for hotel guests only. Are you a guest at the hotel?
Nah, not me. Just need some milk. Got a Navcom algorithm that homes in on fresh milk. I mean, I could just get a fridge.
I love that. It might seem small, but this is the kind of characterization that I think this incarnation is missing in a lot of his outings. On the flip side, Steven also isn't afraid to play into the Doctor's darker side, which is on full display during a scene when Joy is possessed and the Doctor has to save her life by getting her angry, so he says all kinds of horrible shit to her.
Because your room is the worst, loneliest, saddest hotel room in the world.
I don't think Russell would ever write a scene like this with him.
When you tell people your name, do they laugh? When your mother looked into your squishy little baby face and named you Joy, was it a joke, do you think? Was she having a laugh?
A lot of people don't like this episode, and I can see why. It's far from perfect, but personally, I think this episode is still of above average quality where this era is concerned. Though, as usual, I do think the constant blaring music that's turned up way too loud detracts from the experience. While watching this for the first time, I actually noticed that one particular part of the music sounds very familiar.
Anyway, I'll go get you some towels.
Just to be clear, I'm not accusing Murray Gold of plagiarizing Mario Galaxy. I think it's a coincidence, but it's still funny. Actually, here's a little editing tidbit. When I loaded this episode into my editing software, because it's in surround sound, it automatically split the audio into 6 different tracks, meaning the dialogue track and the music track were separate, which meant that I was free to rescore the entire episode, which I did.
Ham and cheese toasty and a pumpkin latte?
Can someone please tell me what is going on?
What kind of sad sack human train wreck puts himself in a room like that at Christmas?
Alright, enough beating around the bush. Time to rustle some feathers.
I really understood that well.
So, a lot of people do like this episode, but I'm afraid I'm not one of them. I don't. I've rewatched it, I've tried to see the good in it, I just don't like it, and it really fumbles its themes. On paper, this episode is about incels and AI, but in practice, it isn't about either of those things. In the slightest. The first thing we see the Doctor do in this episode is cause a blackout in a hospital.
Look over there.
What?
Sorry.
That has nothing to do with the plot, I just wanted to bring it up because it's funny. Especially since the episode doesn't even seem to acknowledge that he did anything wrong. It's never brought up again. Should this be factored into the Doctor's canon kill count? So the main goal of this episode is to introduce brand new companion Belinda Chandra. At the beginning we see a flashback to her with her boyfriend from when they were supposedly teenagers, and he gives her one of those novelty certificates that names you the owner of a star.
That star, that's yours. That star right there.
Aw, how sweet. I hope he's not secretly an incel or something like that. Then 16 years later, ignore the fact that she looks the exact same age, a bunch of robots turn up and kidnap her. Then they murder a cat.
You killed the cat.
The cat is irrelevant.
It wasn't my cat.
The cat is still irrelevant.
Something about this moment just doesn't land for me. It just seems kind of sad, but it's played like it's supposed to be funny. In fact, now that I think about it, Russell's eras of Doctor Who have a long history of cat abuse.
Oh.
There's everyone like you. What?
No, I'm not really a cat person.
I'm really just beginning to think this man hates cats.
Oi! You're wrecking the place! And my landlord is not a nice man.
I also think this scene is a good showcase of what I can only refer to as the show's Flanderization. I don't mean that word in the typical sense. It doesn't refer to a specific character, but rather the tone of the writing. Earlier in the show, people would react more like people if their home got invaded by aliens. That is to say, they would freak out. But over time, perhaps because writers don't want to repeat themselves, humans have been getting more and more nonchalant about encounters with aliens. Not necessarily because humanity is supposed to be becoming braver, but more likely because the writers just want to insert humor.
That took me 9 weeks.
to the point where when aliens walk into Belinda's house and threaten her life, all she can say is, "My landlord won't be happy with you." It's a clear attempt at a joke, but it's just not how a person would react in this situation.
Don't tell me he needs a toilet.
So the robots take Belinda away, and we find out that Mrs. Flood is her neighbor now. Remember her? She's Ruby's neighbor from the last season who kept breaking the fourth wall.
Oh, what happens to that mysterious traveler in time and space known as the Doctor? I'm sorry to say his story ends in absolute terror.
I guess she moved away from Ruby's neighborhood, but rest assured, she's still breaking the fourth wall.
You won't see me.
Before you get a second to concentrate on that, we see that the Doctor is also at Belinda's house, having found out that this was going on at some point off screen.
Belinda! Belinda!
He knows who she is because he found out about her at some point in the future that we haven't seen yet. Already not the most easy to follow plot, and we're 5 minutes in. Then he follows her to the planet she's been taken to, Belinda 1, a planet named after her. You see, sometime in the future, these robots will get a hold of her diploma, proclaiming her to own a star. Then these robots will go back in time 5,000 years to the founding of this civilization to present the creators with the diploma, which causes it to become a foundation myth of their civilization, meaning Belinda is their queen. This information is conveyed to the audience very quickly through expository dialogue from the Doctor. So best be paying attention. It also really doesn't help that we don't get to find out where the robots got the diploma from in this episode. The inciting event that causes the entire plot to happen is just missing in action.
There's still a little bit of mystery left. How did the robots get a hold of this in the future?
Instead, Russell decides to hold off on revealing that information until the finale. Generally, if you're going to withhold answers from the audience for a future story, you would do that because you're building to something greater, as in planning to tie it into another story arc. Perhaps a nefarious character we haven't met yet is responsible for giving the robots the diploma. Moffat loved doing stuff like that. Who's the woman in the shop that introduced the Doctor to Clara?
Where did you get this number?
The shop wrote it down. She said it's the best helpline out there.
What woman? Who was she?
I don't know. The woman in the shop.
Well, turns out a season and a half later, it was the Master. And I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but spoiler alert, once the actual finale rolls around, this diploma just feels like an afterthought, and it's resolved very hastily.
One more thing. The robots from Miss Belinda Chandra 1, they picked up the star register in the future. Now the planet is not destroyed, so I've got to chuck this thing back out into space, then the robots can find it. History is intact, thank you very much.
It's not a meaningful addition to the episode at all, and I really feel like it would have been better if it were just resolved in the robot revolution. And call me cynical, but it feels a tiny bit like the only reason this was stretched out to the finale was to keep viewers watching with the allure of some promised mystery that ended up not really amounting to anything. This isn't the only time that happens in this season, but again, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's dive back into the story. At least now we know why Belinda's here. But unfortunately, her namesake planet is in a state of chaos. There is a massive robot revolution going on that is destroying the fabric of society.
What's happening? Rebels in the North Zone started a riot, so the robots are unleashing Miss Belinda Chandra bombs. Please help us.
I'd love to have seen more of this world or how the war has affected it, but these shots of the city are all we really get to see. It's quite two-dimensional. Pretty much the entire episode takes place between two claustrophobic locations, the Rebel base and the robot capital. We're just told that a full-scale war is happening off-screen, but we barely get to see it. I would love to have at least seen a little bit more about this planet's culture, like how they worship Belinda. You know, what if they had a statue of what they assumed she looks like? Or what if we got tidbits about what makes their culture unique in some way? I think these things would have all helped to add flavor to the episode and prevent it from feeling so bare. Unfortunately, this episode prefers to tell rather than show. We don't really learn anything about this society from observing it. Rather, we get fed all our information via exposition dumps. Speaking of exposition dumps, here's another one. The Doctor has been here for 6 months because he accidentally landed his TARDIS too early due to a time fracture. So in that time, he secretly joined the rebel forces while also being the planet's designated historian. He then reveals to Belinda this information by exploiting a glitch with the robots.
Once upon a time, The planet was united. Listen, the robots and people lived together in peace too. But then 10 years ago, it all changed. Me.
He explains that they cannot hear every 9th word somebody says.
Cannot. So the mighty robots marched across the world here. People fought back, but they are weak flesh. They begged for kindness and hoped for peace. 9th. But then the AI generator conquered them. Word.
That's a cool idea, and I thought this was well done when I initially watched the episode, until they felt the need to play back every 9th word he said just in case you somehow missed it.
Robots faulty cannot hear every 9th word.
I guarantee you, there is not a person alive who needed that action replay. Sometimes it's nice to let the audience put 2 and 2 together for themselves. All's I'm saying.
Word.
So immediately after giving his coded message to Belinda, the Doctor signals his comrades to commence an attack. Which of course begs the question, why did the Doctor even bother giving Belinda a coded message right in front of the robots if he planned to immediately blow his cover anyways and could have just told her this normally afterwards? Answer, because it's a cool scene, shut the fuck up. During the attack, we find out that the Doctor has promised to take one of the rebels aboard the TARDIS as his new companion.
Take her home, Doctor. Then take me to the stars.
That is a date.
Yeah, I think you can already guess where that's going. Well, at least they didn't draw it out this time. The Doctor is sad about this for a minute, and he cries. But then it's time for more exposition dumps.
So what are you doing here?
I came for you.
Why?
I was told about you by someone. Do you see? The problem is that, but the AI generator has got the same thing. It is the exact same diploma. When you were taken by the robots, I was at your house. It was the fracture in time.
The border between this world and Earth keeps jumping about in time.
It just feels like the episode wants more time than it has to juggle all of these plot points. And the best example of that may come in the form of the rebels. None of them have more than a couple lines, and I very much so doubt that anyone watching this video can remember any of their names. And yet, the episode still acts like we're meant to care about them. We're supposed to be sad when,
Sasha 55.
Sasha 55 dies. And then the episode establishes a conflict between Belinda and Manny, who gets really angsty and starts blaming her for everything.
Sasha was the best. She died. Helping you.
And it's not my fault.
Is that an order from the Queen? You're as bad as the robots.
She's only been here for like 20 minutes, you weirdo. I can't believe Manny would say this, honestly, I'm heartbroken. And besides him, the rest of the rebels basically just ignore her. But this is a very odd way for them to act, considering that Belinda is basically their messiah figure. They've been reading stories about the great Belinda Chandra since they were born, yet none of them really take interest in her besides the guy that hates her for no reason.
This is all your fault, Queen Belinda.
It would have made the world feel a lot more lived in. And furthermore, if everyone in this episode was looking to Belinda as their leader and savior to guide them through this hard time, that would give her a lot more to play off of, having to find a way to cope with all that pressure and try to live up to everyone's expectations. In the episode we got, Belinda has surprisingly little to actually do, and she has surprisingly little reaction to what's going on around her. Her conflict with Manny is wrapped up about as quickly as it was established. Its only point is to make her feel guilty, so that she'll summon the robots to the rebel base to turn herself in.
Rebels, you will surrender.
I did this!
You betrayed us!
I'm saving you.
I'm saving you by giving the robots the location of your secret headquarters. You don't appreciate that? I know this analysis has mostly been a plot summary of the episode so far. I am sorry about that. This episode is very dense, and there's a lot of information I have to convey to properly make my critiques. That being said, remember how I said this episode is supposedly about AI and incels? Well, here's where that comes up. The big baddie that controls all the robots is called the AI generator, but it turns out it's not actually an AI at all. They were all misreading it. It actually says Al generator, because it's Alan, Belinda's boyfriend from 17 years ago. The fact that it actually says Al generator on it, but everyone thought it said AI generator because no one saw it from the right angle. It's funny, It would make more sense if he didn't refer to himself as the AI generator as well, though.
The AI generator knows no pity.
And can I just say, I was actually kind of bummed out when I realized this episode isn't actually about AI at all, really. I would have loved to see an episode where some kind of dystopic generative AI threatens to completely replace humanity, and how the Doctor might defeat it. It would definitely be timely right now. As is, it really just feels like AI generator was thrown into the script as a buzzword, but the idea wasn't actually explored at all. And if you're wondering how Belinda's teenage boyfriend got here, strap yourselves in for some more plot. When the robots were kidnapping Belinda, she mentioned that Alan was the one who gave her the diploma, which caused the robots to then time travel back to kidnap Alan, but then they accidentally arrived 10 years earlier, and then Alan caused the robot revolution and became a psychotic dictator cyborg.
He landed before the robot revolution.
The part of this that's hard to wrap your head around is that the robots definitely seem evil at the beginning of the episode, implying they were already under Alan's control, but they were only ever under Alan's control because after the robots kidnapped Belinda, she told them about Alan.
It's my fault. I told them about Alan. You haven't even got the right person! It's Alan that bought this thing! Alan Daniel Budd, go get him! Tell him he owes me 50 quid!
So to recap, the robots were only ever under his control because she said that, causing them to go get him. They can't have gone to go get him before she said this, but she only said this because they took her because they were already under his control. Something timey-wimey. It's another bootstrap paradox. My brain's gonna hurt if I try to think about it any longer. Anyways, the important part of the scene is the reveal that Alan was actually an incel all along.
Planet of the incels.
And he's not just any incel, he's a gamer incel.
You mean it's like a game? With robots and cities and lasers. I can make up the rules and win.
Holy boomer. You mean it's just like GTA where I can kill people? As an evil gamer, that's all I've ever wanted.
Destroy him!
In order to justify labeling him as an incel, the episode shows us new moments that we hadn't seen before, in which he comes off as having no understanding of social boundaries.
Because all you ever did was correct me.
I really don't think you should wear clothes that tight anymore. No more texting after 8 p.m. Okay?
Alan, sweetheart, no.
This is a common trend in this era. Instead of presenting the audience with pieces of a puzzle that will logically fall together at the end of the episode, Russell will just basically go back and retcon what we've already seen. I mean, it's true that gifting someone a star is a bit tacky, but I doubt that many viewers came away from the opening scene with the impression he was anything other than a socially awkward nerd.
This is the nicest thing anyone has ever done for me.
Kiss you.
The only thing in the opening that could even slightly be read as him being incel-coded is, I guess, this moment.
Does it have to say miss?
Are you married?
No.
Then it's miss.
Either way, by trying to make the reveal that Alan is an incel a shocking twist, you don't actually get to explore that theme throughout the episode because you crammed it all into a single scene at the very end. We as viewers don't get to see how Belinda coped with having a boyfriend like this, or how she might have learned from this experience, because this rushed flashback is all we get to see. And on top of that, I'm not completely sure that Russell knows what the word incel means. The idea that he's an incel seems kind of counterintuitive, since the one time we saw him before this, he had a girlfriend, which kind of flies in the face of what an incel is, but whatever, sure. He's an incel.
Planet of the incels.
Does this episode actually explore that idea in any three-dimensional way? Nope. Belinda just walks up to him and touches her copy of the diploma to his, which, because they're two copies of the same object from two different points in its timeline, causes a time explosion thingy to happen. I don't really have a better way of explaining it than that.
If you get the same atoms in the same space twice, kaboom.
Like, it sucks out their souls and they trip acid for a bit, and then Belinda goes back to her body and it's revealed Alan has been reduced into sperm.
Where's Alan? Where did he go?
He's microscopic.
Do you mean?
He's a sperm in an egg.
I'm pretty sure we've seen two copies of the same object from two different points in its timeline interact before on the show.
Temporal energy, same screwdriver at different points in its own time stream.
And this never happened. But fuck it. The salt line explains this. Now, this may seem like a rushed, unsatisfying ending to the story that borders on Deus Ex Machina. And it is, but it's not actually the most objectionable thing about this scene. The Doctor's reaction to Alan's death is...
He's a sperm and an egg. Oh. Goodbye, Alan. Yes, Queen!
Did he just say... Yas, Queen? The Doctor just straight up celebrating the death of this guy really doesn't sit right with me, especially since he was only 16 when Belinda knew him. Allegedly. And especially since it's outright stated that Alan wasn't even fully in control once he merged with the robot interface and he was actually in extreme pain the whole time.
Every Ninth Word is telling us the truth.
Help me! Save me!
Like, yeah, he was shown to be a shitty and controlling boyfriend, but just a couple episodes ago, the Doctor cried when he had to kill Sutekh, the god of death, who attempted to exterminate the entire universe. Sutekh's death warrants tears, but when this kid dies, it's all, haha, get wrecked, loser.
Yes, Queen!
Just because he was allegedly an incel? No, that's completely out of character for the Doctor, and I feel like it's only here because Russell wants brownie points for writing an episode that dunks on incels. Even though this guy had a girlfriend, which I'm pretty sure makes him de facto not an incel. Like, on the one hand, you have a nuanced piece of media like Adolescence, which masterfully explores how the poisonous ideology of inceldom can prey upon the insecurities of young boys and warp them into violent, dangerous people. It interrogates their way of thinking, but still depicts them as real people. Then you have something like this which depicts incels as cartoonishly evil beings that deserve to die. And listen, I'm no more a fan of incels than you are, or Russell presumably is. They do indeed suck. This is known. But in my opinion, this kind of two-dimensional commentary is not productive in any way. Hey, it's me from months in the future. I'm just jumping in to add a little personal anecdote to this section. I have seen some people say that the only reason somebody would criticize this episode is because they're secretly an incel too, which is obviously disingenuous, but still warrants a response in my mind. As a kid, I was friends with somebody who had autism and severe learning disabilities. He struggled to socialize with people, and so he got bullied by a lot of the other kids, and the older he got, the more he felt alienated from society. Unfortunately, as he got older, this ideology started to appeal to him. I remember him thinking that the world would never accept him for who he truly was. His politics got increasingly radical, and despite attempts from me and many others close to him to pull him out of this rabbit hole before he went in too deep, we could not get through to him. He eventually turned openly hostile, cut all contact with me and my friends, and I haven't heard from him in years. But last I heard, he really wasn't doing well. Maybe he's made it out the other end since. I certainly hope so. But this ideology may well have ruined his life, in addition to transforming him into a vastly worse person. I just want to make this crystal clear. I am not asking you to feel bad for incels, because generally speaking, they are not pleasant people to be around. Especially if you're a woman, they will take out their anger over their poor life choices on you, and that shouldn't be your cross to bear. All that I am asking is for this issue to be taken seriously. Give us a depiction of incels that shows us why they become that way, why it's a mistake, and perhaps even how they could come back from it before it's too late. Instead, this episode just serves to point and laugh at them, and that's exactly the kind of material that only seeks to alienate them further. Most incels think the world is out to get them. Trust me, I know from experience. They'll take media like this as proof they're right. If it wasn't already abundantly clear, I don't like this episode. I think it fails on pretty much every level. Thematically, story-wise, character-wise, nothing here works for me. The only part of this episode that had me intrigued was the ending. See, Virata Sethu has already played a role in this era of Doctor Who, specifically Mundy Flynn in the episode Boom.
I'm an ordained Anglican Marine.
I don't know why, but Russell really likes bringing back actors that played a one-off character to be full-time companions later, even if it's a character he gruesomely killed off.
I had a cousin, Adiola. She worked at Canary Wharf. She never came home.
Anyways, the Doctor makes this connection, hinting at the fact that there might be something deeper going on here.
Is that just chance? Or something more?
Is that supposed to be a coincidence?
Well, that is what I am worried about.
Maybe we are meant
to be connected.
I'm just gonna rip the band-aid off here, though. This doesn't lead anywhere. There's nothing deeper going on, apart from maybe destiny or something. I think they would have been better off just not acknowledging it was the same actress, because I think a lot of people were fooled into thinking this was set up for some storyline when it really wasn't.
Miss Belinda Chandra is a very, 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 very distant descendant of Mundy Flynn.
Did she look like me?
Absolute match.
However, the part of the scene I do like is when Belinda calls the doctor out on his controlling behavior.
You tested my DNA without even asking my permission. You're dangerous.
I'm sorry.
I am not one of your adventures.
She makes it clear that she has no interest in traveling with him, but for whatever reason, he's unable to take the TARDIS back to 2025.
We are bouncing off May the 24th, and that is impossible.
What's gonna happen on May the 24th? Not only does this set up the season's arc, but it establishes Belinda as a companion that is not gonna take the Doctor's bullshit in stride, which could be an interesting dynamic. Now it seems the Doctor must figure out a way to get Belinda back home. I look forward to seeing where this goes.
While I'm waiting for your fucking response, are you just not gonna say anything, dumbass?
Now, if my coverage of the last episode made you think I'm just a nasty old hater who's capable of nothing more than negativity, then think again. Lux is my favorite episode of this season, which is funny because by all means this episode is the spiritual successor to The Devil's Cord, an episode which I don't like, but I'll be damned. This is everything that episode should have been, and then some. In this episode, we meet Mr. Ring-a-Ding-Ding, otherwise known as Lux, the God of Light. He's another member of the pantheon of gods who all laugh the same way for some reason. It runs in the family. And he's voiced by Alan Cumming, who knocks it out of the park. He brings an energy to the character that I've honestly never seen in a Doctor Who antagonist before, and I love it.
Well, a happy hello to you too.
I'll start out with the most obvious compliment I could level at this episode. It looks great. That Disney money is on full display here. I like how a lot of scenes in this episode are lit, especially the one outside of the diner where the purple light from the neon sign washes over everything, creating some contrast within the image. It looks quite nice. They also did a good job of blocking these scenes. I never felt like Lux wasn't actually there, and it felt like he interacts with the space around him pretty effectively.
Mr. Reginald Pye.
It's funny I mentioned The Devil's Court a minute ago because this episode reuses a lot of elements from that episode's set, though in this case I think they're used a lot more effectively.
It's been recycled from the set used on last season's 1960s episode, The Devil's Court.
Wow. It's cool, isn't it?
But enough about the episode's visuals. How about its script? While I wouldn't call this episode perfect, it stands above the rest from this season to me for one primary reason. Pacing. I think it's easy to take pacing for granted until you see an episode that messes it up. Lux, like many of the RTD episodes of old, takes its time setting up its mystery. First we're introduced to the location, a closed-down theater, but the Doctor and Belinda don't immediately go in. Instead they head to a diner and speak to the locals, and through this we learn about the mysterious circumstances surrounding the theater.
15 people went missing, sir, all in one night. 3 months ago, just disappeared.
The episode actually allows the setting to marinate with viewers before the Doctor and Belinda go inside and are first introduced to Lux. And once we do meet Lux, we learn more and more information about him gradually as the episode goes on. It never feels like we're getting an overwhelming amount of information at once, nor does the episode resort to bombarding the audience with exposition dumps. Rather, everything develops naturally. Lux's origin, what Lux ultimately wants, the backstory of the theater manager who Lux has been emotionally exploiting by reanimating his dead wife.
He brought her back.
We learn the answers to all of these questions by seeing them in action, i.e. the episode shows us instead of just having the Doctor tell us. If it feels like the Doctor already knows everything and has some contrived way of beating his foe already thought up, it can make the episode feel boring. In this story, the Doctor seems genuinely caught off guard by the threat he encounters and learns about it at the same pace that the audience does. It feels like he's truly being tested. The most talked about part of this episode has to be the scene when Lux sucks the Doctor into a reel of film. First, we get a scene where both of them are animated, which, I mean, of course that had to happen. It would have been a missed opportunity not to do that. And they regain their third dimension by not thinking two-dimensionally.
I don't think you'll ever get me home.
You were sad, and you became more three-dimensional.
Cute. That being said, this moment is a tad revealing in that it implies Russell's idea of giving a character depth is just to make them sad for a second, which is kind of unironically his strategy throughout this era.
My people are dead. I'm the last of the Time Lords.
Sad does not automatically equal deep, especially when the character in question has been stagnant for decades now. Like, I think most of us have had enough of the whole last of the Time Lord shtick at this point. After this, things only get more berserk when they literally break the fourth wall and come out of the television, finding themselves in the living room of a bunch of Doctor Who fans.
Oh my god. It happened.
Doctor.
Yes. This actually happens.
What's your favorite adventure?
Blink.
Definitely Blink.
Blink. Every time.
Not the one with the goblins?
Blink.
I met the Beatles.
Blink.
Not the one where I am standing on a landmine?
Blink.
This scene is funny because if Russell was in touch with Doctor Who fans, he'd know that everyone says Blink is overrated. Don't worry, none of this is actually real. It turns out to just be a deception from Lux, and the Whovians realize as much.
We don't exist.
They are not real. Once we move on, Lizzie, Assad, and Robin will all blink out of existence.
Blink.
So the question is, what is this scene trying to say? Doctor Who fans have no free will? Doctor Who fans are sheeple who regurgitate the same opinion over and over again? Yes. If I'm being honest though, I don't think this scene is trying to say anything deep. It's just a self-insert of Doctor Who fans, portrayed in an honestly kind of unflattering light, and it's not the first time the show has done this either. Yet somehow this time it's even more unsubtle than it was with Osgood.
We are a bit annoying, I know that.
The worst part of this scene, however, is the ending, which is clearly supposed to be a tribute to Doctor Who fans, but it really just kind of feels like a self-aggrandizing circle jerk. People have been accusing this show of being high on its own farts, basically since the Moffat era, and this really isn't helping to beat the allegations.
But maybe, just now and then you can think of us. Then we might live on just a little bit.
So we find out Lux's goal is essentially to absorb as much light as possible. Ultimately, the theater's owner sacrifices himself, somewhat unnecessarily, and Lux escapes into the real world, absorbing as much light as he can. This causes him to expand more and more until he becomes one with the cosmos, canonically making Lux God in the Doctor Who universe from this point on. Cool. Now, in all honesty, I think they could have gotten a little bit more creative with some of Lux's powers. Like if he, I don't know, brought other cartoon characters from different films alive and set them on the Doctor, and they all had wacky, unique personalities or something. I don't know, that might have been expensive. I am left scratching my head about one aspect of the plot, which is that they establish that when Mr. Ring-a-Ding's theme song is played, he has to dance to it. Like it's a biological fact of his being. He can't not dance to it.
Because I'm Mr. Ring-a-Ding, I make your heart bells sing.
And so theoretically, as long as they play the song, they're safe because he's stuck in place. But after they play it once, they just never revisit this. Why don't you guys just play the song on loop? Am I missing something?
The song has stopped.
Wouldn't worry. It's really not much of a chase.
Darn it, I was so big when I arrived. I should never have learned perspective.
I do have to admit that the joke is funny, but still, like, what are you doing? Okay, he's slow, fine, but he's still approaching you, and you have a way to make him not move at all if you just play the song.
Let me in, by the hair of my chinny chin chin.
Oh no, if only there's something you guys could have done to prevent this. And don't give me the whole, it's old equipment, it would have taken a while to rewind it bullshit. He's the Doctor, his sonic screwdriver is basically a magic wand, he could have played a song if he wanted to. Aside from the fact that I think it's a little out of character for the Doctor to just ignore an easy way to get a leg up on his foe. This is another example of Belinda being weirdly nonchalant about an extremely terrifying alien life form that's currently trying to kill her.
Are you saying that's a god?
The main criticism I've seen people level against the episode is that it's not even remotely sci-fi. Like, there's no attempt at a scientific explanation for this. Lux is clearly a magical being. This is magic. And to be fair here, that's more of a critique of the era as a whole. Even though I'm not a huge fan of this new fantasy direction, I was still able to enjoy this episode regardless for what it is, because it's well executed. This episode ends with another cameo from Mrs. Flood.
That was like a special effect. Well, like from the movies. How did they do that?
trick of the light.
Yeah, if last season's mystery box of having a mysterious old woman show up everywhere the Doctor and Ruby go wasn't enough for you, this season has another mysterious old woman mystery box. Actually, it has two mysterious old woman mystery boxes. Mysterious old woman mystery box enthusiasts have been eating good these last couple years. However, we can't advance without acknowledging one thing, and that's Belinda's characterization. In the last episode, she made it very clear that she did not want to travel with the Doctor.
I told you, get me home!
Once it becomes clear the Doctor is unable to get her home, I would assume that she'd be hostile towards him. She's trapped here in this spaceship with an alien that makes her feel uncomfortable with no immediate way of getting home. And yet, come this episode, and suddenly she's giggling and trying on dresses so that she can go explore the 1950s like any other generic companion. It's just jarring. It feels like there's a missing beat here. This episode's script almost feels like it wasn't written for her specifically. I wonder if we'll be revisiting that idea later in this video.
He's right behind me, isn't he?
Well, well, well. Looky here. So this is the part of the video that's gonna piss the most people off. And if you've taken a gander into the comment section on any of my Disney ranking videos, you know that I'm no stranger to pissing people off, but I'm sorry to say it, I don't think The Well is that good. It's universally beloved and widely considered to be the best episode of this new era, and I'm sorry, I just don't get the hype. It's a spiritual successor to one of Russell's most beloved episodes ever, Midnight.
It's the sequel no one ever expected. It's the kind of episode you should never do a sequel to, so that's where we went, frankly, right to that.
Like that episode, it's a psychological thriller and the main antagonist is the Midnight Entity, a mysterious being that nobody, even the Doctor, understands. Immediately after stepping out of the TARDIS while listening to Toxic, because Russell loves that song, the Doctor and Belinda become trapped on the surface of a planet with an expedition team who are just setting out to explore the remains of a devastated colony. For whatever reason, everybody in the colony seems to be dead except for one woman, Alice. Right off the bat, I'm going to praise this episode's pacing. Like Lux, it takes its time so that there can be a little bit of actual world building. It's not even revealed that the planet they're on is Midnight until over halfway through the runtime of the episode, and the reveal itself is quite well done.
400,000 years ago, what was the planet called?
It was called Midnight.
I've been here before.
The flashbacks may have been a bit overkill, but you know. Turns out the Midnight Entity has latched itself onto Alice's back and it kills anybody who walks behind her. This means that if she ever turns her back to someone, they will die immediately. It's pretty scary. So here's my first issue with the episode, at least when viewing it as a sequel to Midnight. Whilst this is an interesting concept for a monster, it's nothing like the Midnight Entity we knew back in the day. That version of the Midnight Entity was an incorporeal being, or so it seemed anyways, that was capable of taking over the human body but didn't understand anything about us, so it learned about us by copying us. First, it merely repeats back to somebody what they say.
Are you alright?
Are you alright?
Are you hurt?
Are you hurt?
Then it learns to predict what they're going to say.
What do you think? Do we have a deal?
Until it gains the ability to talk using their words. It does this to the Doctor and tricks everybody into turning against him.
With blood. And pain.
And God, make him stop.
The only reason the Doctor didn't die here is because one of the people on board the ship they were on recognized his vocabulary specifically, having chatted with him at the beginning of the episode.
Allons-y. That's his voice.
So yeah, all that chit-chat in the beginning of the story isn't just there for the sake of them bonding, it's necessary to the resolution. This is good writing, very good writing. 2 thumbs up, waiter, please bring me more. It's a perfect sci-fi concept. Not only is it conceptually fascinating, but the way the monster is written naturally generates conflict. Because it imitates us, nobody can trust each other in its presence. Look, I understand that Midnight is peak. One of the most peak episodes Russell ever wrote for the show. So it's not fair to expect the follow-up to hit the same level. But why fundamentally change the Midnight Entity like this, arguably one of the best monsters Doctor Who has ever had? The Midnight Entity of old tried to copy humans in an attempt to replace them. This Midnight Entity just hides behind you and then makes people fly in the air when they stand in the wrong spot. I mean, I guess it's trying to play on a different primal fear, you know, not being able to see what's behind you. but I just don't think it works nearly as well. It's not nearly as captivating to watch or interesting to imagine, and it's certainly not a driver of natural conflict in the same way, but because this episode is meant to feel like Midnight, they shoehorn conflict into the script, which can feel a little forced. Also, I don't like the fact that they showed the Midnight entity on screen. It was cool that we didn't know what it looked like before, and we just had to imagine it, and seeing it just robs it of a lot of mystique. Look, I know the episode takes place 500,000 years after Midnight, so arguably it could have evolved in that time, but it's so different now I feel like it might as well have been an entirely different species. With both the setting and creature feeling so unrecognizable, why make this a sequel to Midnight at all? It just comes off, to me at least, like it's trying to use nostalgia to keep viewers watching yet again. You know, honestly, if they were going to make a sequel to Midnight, I think they should have done an Alien to Aliens thing, where like there's more than one Midnight entity they have to deal with. But, you know, that's just me. Or you could have an entity that's even more advanced than the one we saw in Midnight. There are so many ways you could raise the stakes for Midnight and really test the Doctor on a fundamental level, and I just don't really think this episode did that. Funny enough, Wild Blue Yonder, the other fan-favorite episode from this era, feels to me like more of a spiritual successor to Midnight than this episode. Maybe that's why the Midnight entity changed so much? He didn't want the entity to feel too similar to the Not things? Like I said, the conflict in this episode doesn't hold a candle to the original. In Midnight, the Doctor is isolated. He has no means of contacting Donna or escaping. He's trapped, completely at the mercy of a group of regular people who are acting increasingly irrationally because of fear. For once we see a scenario where his charm and charisma are completely useless, and when the entity starts taking over his body, we see him more vulnerable and terrified than ever before. That's why this episode is so memorable. Compare that to the conflict in this episode, it all boils down to the Doctor not getting along with this military guy.
I'm just not loving the look, babes.
It's not appropriate to call me babes.
Okay, hon.
But the conflict doesn't feel personal at all, and at no point does it feel like this guy poses an actual threat to the Doctor. He briefly tries to stage a coup.
You will stand down, Shire Custodian, right now.
I think that we should all just calm down.
And you will be silent or you will be shot.
And then he immediately dies afterwards. I wouldn't even blame somebody for forgetting this character existed, because his role in the story is so minimal. And I'm sorry, but the rest of the side characters are just fairly two-dimensional. But you know what? I'll stop comparing this episode to Midnight. I mean, it was asking for it by framing itself as a sequel to it, but for the sake of fairness, let's try to view it as a fully independent story. And honestly, it does have a lot of good moments, as well as a great sense of atmosphere. But even when taken as its own story, I still don't find this episode nearly as compelling as I think most people do. It can really drag at points, especially when they're over-explaining how the creature attached to Alice works, and Belinda pulls out a helpful diagram to explain that you can't go behind her.
If this is Alice, and this is us, there is something behind her. And if you go behind it, you die.
Stranger Things and its consequences have been disastrous for media at large. Also, I don't think they make particularly great use of the setting. The story takes place in this abandoned mining facility, but virtually everything in the episode is confined between two rooms. And the rooms are really big and spacious. Having everybody at Midnight be trapped in a tiny room really helps add to the claustrophobia and discomfort of that story. Here, you just don't get that same effect. So instead of leading into the horror side of things, you might as well have pursued action, again a bit like Aliens does, but this episode doesn't really do that either.
One big difference between Midnight and The Well is that in the former, everyone was stuck inside a static space bus, but in the latter, they're free to run around like action heroes.
Yeah, they're free to run around, but aside from one short scene, they don't really. Compare this to a story like Silence in the Library, which is also set in a huge abandoned location. That story really makes use of the space, and its emptiness plays into the story's deeper themes. Same with Heaven Sent. I'm of the opinion that a story's setting should complement, well, the story. And if you're not going to make use of a gargantuan setting, there's no reason to have it. Also, I don't want to be that guy, but like, they say that if anyone goes behind Alice for even a moment, they will die.
Don't go behind her. Don't go directly behind her, or you're dead.
And there's multiple points in the episode where you can clearly see Alice has her back to somebody, and they don't die. Also, there's a scene when the asshole military guy forces Alice to turn around, meaning she has her back to everybody else. And when they start dying, everybody, including the doctor, starts yelling at Alice to stop turning. Even though they know she's deaf and can't hear them, which, you know, they're under stress, maybe they're not thinking clearly, but why don't they just move? Like, you can just run. Why is everyone just standing there screaming as she turns her back to them? You could just move out of the way. But I'm not giving Alice a free pass here either, because she knows from the beginning of the story that anybody who walks behind her will die, yet she doesn't warn them of what's actually going on until somebody has already walked behind her and perished. All she says is, "Leave me alone."
Leave me alone. Stop.
Or what?
Why don't you just use your words to clearly explain what's going on before someone dies? And this is not how real people would act in this situation. I'm sorry, it's just all really contrived. On top of all this, there's another part of the scene I find extremely questionable, and it's this. The squad leader uses Alice to murder the guy trying to stage a coup.
Alice, turn 180.
I mean, sure, that dude may have been an asshole, but like Alice, he was in an extremely traumatic and stressful situation, and he just watched his close friends die. I don't know if I think he deserved to be murdered. How does the doctor react to this? Well, apparently he's fine with it because he doesn't reprimand her and never mentions it again.
I had to, he was out of control.
It's what he turns us into.
This again makes me question his moral compass. Why is it okay to kill this guy and celebrate Alan's death in the robot revolution, but killing the bogeyman and space babies was totally unacceptable, and killing Sutek is worth crying over? The doctor's morals just feel kind of inconsistent, and it can really harm his characterization. So ultimately the doctor remembers that every mirror in the colony has been smashed, and figures out that the entity can be defeated by its own reflection. So he spills a bunch of mercury behind Alice, it sees its own reflection and tries to kill itself. It's perhaps a bit predictable, but honestly, it's a decent resolution to the conundrum. Though I will say that it is objectively funny that apparently the Midnight entity is now so dumb that it is no smarter than a dog that gets tricked by its own reflection. Now, personally, I think this would have been cool if there had been two different entities in this episode, like I suggested earlier, and to defeat it, they had the two people it was latched onto stand back to back so that the two entities killed each other. But that's just me. This still works decently well. At least they weaponized the villain's power against it in a clever way, which in and of itself sets this resolution above most others this season. Except, technically, this isn't the episode's resolution because there's still more. So after getting Alice out, they realize that the entity has now attached itself to Belinda. When I was watching this the first time, I assumed that they could just go back to the room they were just in and use the mercury wall again to separate it from Belinda, or send somebody back to the ship to go grab another reflective surface they could use. It's not like they're on a timer here, but for some reason, the plan they end up going for is to shoot Belinda right above her heart so that the entity will pass to the squad leader. The doctor is surprisingly cool with this. It seems a little unnecessarily risky to me, but okay, I mean, if it works, it works. The squad leader then runs back to the well and jumps in to trap the creature there once and for all. Despite the fact that the creature originally came from the well, which is what we've been explicitly told, so why do you assume it won't be able to get out of the well when it's already crawled up out of there once? It's so sad when people heroically sacrifice themselves for no reason. No! Then the doctor resuscitates Belinda in the TARDIS and they leave. But uh-oh, the entity came back out of the well.
What is it?
Who could have seen that coming? And then we get another cameo from Mrs. Flood. And that's the well. Now, despite all my criticisms, this episode isn't bad overall. I feel like it has the ingredients of something great, but they just weren't assembled quite right. And again, it really didn't have to be a sequel to Midnight. Actually, while working on the segment, I learned that apparently this episode originally was not a sequel to Midnight, and Russell just kind of stepped in and made it one retroactively, which explains a lot. The planet shouldn't have been Midnight. It should have been whatever its original name was. What was that again?
What is this planet called?
6767.
What did she just say?
6767.
Okay, I take it back, midnight is better. To me, at least, it ends up being a bit frustrating to watch, and I find myself unable to really connect with the characters or be interested in the world it establishes. So, I said it. I don't like the well as much as everybody else does. Sue me, throw me down a well, but guess what? I'll crawl back out of the well and then I will haunt you forever. See how you like that? And regardless of whether you agree with me on this episode, statistically, you probably don't, I think we can still agree that the season is off to a bumpy start. It had some great moments, but it also had some really terrible ones. The tone is all over the place, everything feels extremely uneven. There are legitimately good ideas being kicked around here, but for whatever reason, something's just not coming together concisively. And I'm sorry to say it, but things only go downhill from here. So this episode was written by Pete McTighe of Kerblam fame. In case you need a refresher, that's the episode of Doctor Who about how the systems aren't the problem. He also helmed the war between the land and the sea, which is a whole other can of worms that we will crack into later. And it's another Dr. Light episode.
Straight away, if the Doctor's not around, the stakes are higher. That's been the challenge and the kind of gift of this episode, is being able to have an adventure without the Doctor where people are genuinely in more danger because he's not around.
Anyways, this episode follows Ruby Sunday. Remember her?
Is that even your name, by the way? Because it's ridiculous.
And her new wholesome, clumsy boyfriend, Conrad. The two of them quickly become smitten with each other, but aliens are invading at the same time. Or at least, so it seems, because it actually turns out there were no aliens, and Ruby's new boyfriend is actually a conspiracy theorist.
The only monsters out here are UNIT, lying to the public, spending our money. This one's collecting benefits, stealing our taxes.
Yeah, it turns out he was just trying to get close to Ruby to prove that aliens aren't real and UNIT is lying to the people of Great Britain.
It has been a chore getting to know you.
A lot of shitty boyfriends this season. I've heard people theorize that Conrad was originally supposed to be the same character as Alan, but Millie Gibson's exit forced Russell to split the character in two, and honestly, I could see it. You see, Conrad was abused as a child and now he's evil.
It's about power, and his mom practically ignored him till the day she died.
One interesting thing about the episode is that it doesn't really make Conrad's motivation super clear. At first glance, you might think he just legitimately believes what he's saying, but throughout the episode, he sees aliens multiple times, as well as the TARDIS dematerializing. It's very much so implied that he fully knows that everything he's saying is a lie, but he chooses to say it anyways just because he wants to embarrass Ruby and UNIT and gain clout, because he's just a bad guy.
He's a tax dodger.
So he goes out of his way to construct an extremely elaborate prank that involves costumes, actors, rigging lights to flicker at the right moment to make Ruby think something's off. He even goes as far as to make a fake podcast pretending to be a concerned citizen, which is what pulls Ruby in the first place. Also, real talk, I have trouble wrapping my head around this because, he's part of a conspiracy theorist organization called Think Tank, which has their own podcast, but at the same time, he had a decoy podcast pretending to be pro-UNIT, which gained enough traction to attract Ruby Sunday, and no one put two and two together that it was the same guy running both podcasts. How did nobody catch this, including UNIT? That's like if Alex Jones started up a Hillary Clinton fan podcast, and nobody realized it was him. Speaking of Alex Jones, after writing that joke, I came to the realization that the talk show host Conrad chats with is called Alex Jones. I'm sure many of my British viewers are rolling their eyes at me because this is common knowledge over there, but as a Canadian, I did not know this, and it's genuinely really funny.
Is Trump gonna have babies with a goblin?
And on top of all that, what did he even really prove with this prank? That if you do a really good job of tricking somebody into believing that they're being hunted by aliens, they'll believe it? And if you summon UNIT on the false pretense that aliens are invading Earth, they'll show up? What was the point of all this? He acts like it's some kind of big win after pulling it off too, and apparently the general public agrees with him because UNIT starts losing support.
Fascism on the streets of Britain tonight. An innocent podcaster is in custody after a harmless stunt.
They are wasting our
Have you seen this?
taxes.
He's my hero. Taking on the army.
Am I missing something here? What did he prove? If he's trying to say that they're lying about everything and aliens don't actually exist, then the fact that they took the threat of a potential alien invasion seriously should arguably, if anything, imply that you're wrong. That implies at the very least that they do think aliens are real and thus thought that this was something to be concerned about.
Oh, go and get some fresh air, big man, see what happens.
But whatever, people are idiots, and despite the constant alien invasions of London, they're capable of being tricked into thinking that it was all fake. Fine. After this, Conrad decides it would be an even better idea to infiltrate UNIT with a gun and livestream the whole thing. He also shoots somebody to get in, but he's not livestreaming that part, so don't worry, it couldn't be traced back to him.
You shot someone to get in here.
Maybe you shot him, or he was an actor, or he never existed.
Very convincing argument from Conrad. If I lived in this universe, I would believe him.
Show us the monster costumes. Show us the tech that you're hiding that we paid for.
Conrad, what do you expect to gain by live streaming yourself committing a crime? It doesn't matter either way because Kate gets tired of his bullshit and unleashes the alien he was imitating at the beginning. And I do have to admit that despite everything, this scene is enjoyable to watch.
Please stop it!
You told us it's not real.
Then the monster bites his arm and gives him a big owie.
These two special effects are improving.
For what it's worth, I do think that this is an interesting topic for an episode. How would UNIT fare in the age of conspiracy theorists? It's funny to imagine a universe where aliens invade Earth so often that the conspiracy theorists are trying to claim they don't exist instead of the other way around, but I wanted to see things taken further. If the general public is truly becoming convinced that the government and UNIT staged these alien invasions to consolidate power, you'd think that would lead to some serious civil unrest, something you could spend the entire episode exploring, but they don't really want to tackle that. It's just they embarrass Conrad really bad online and then everybody's so cringed out by him that they stop taking him seriously. Additionally, if you want to make an episode that tackles this theme, I don't think you can do it justice if you don't give us characters who have been genuinely sucked in by it. Like, Conrad is obviously a grifter, but I think we should have met some of his supporters and seen how they've been taken in by his lies, and how that may have blown up their lives and made them stop trusting institutions, put themselves in danger, ruin their relationships. Or in other words, show us the real-world costs of this ideology. It would genuinely have been more interesting if this episode followed Conrad's supporters than Conrad. And from a pacing perspective, it's almost laughable how fast the episode skips over Conrad's movement blowing up. From the scene revealing Conrad's true identity to the beginning of the climax when he infiltrates UNIT, it's 2.5 minutes.
See you around!
With one time jump, we go from Conrad being a complete nobody who can fly under UNIT's radar to, like, the most influential podcaster in the whole country, pretty much immediately. There needed to be a lot more time dedicated to this. One social media montage with a bunch of emojis on screen doesn't cut it. Quick side note, but as we'll come to see, Pete really likes social media montages with emojis on screen. It's like kind of his favorite thing. But more saliently, what if there were grains of truth in what Conrad had to say? Like, this episode really doesn't want to address the idea that some criticisms leveled against UNIT might actually hold water. Maybe UNIT shouldn't be hoarding all of this futuristic technology that could be used for the betterment of the human race. Maybe UNIT kind of is a shady autocratic government regime. Some of Conrad's criticisms sound very similar to legitimate criticisms people have made of the CIA and other intelligence agencies that spy on their citizens.
Every one of them is spying on you and lying about it.
The episode just tosses that in there as another one of crazy Conrad's conspiracy theories, but is it really that far-fetched to suggest that the government might be spying on people? Especially a UN-affiliated organization with no jurisdiction and extrajudicial powers? I would have loved to see this episode tackle the idea that maybe UNIT isn't perfect, and it is susceptible to corruption like any other government body, and it is spying on people. And one day the Doctor might find himself at odds with them because of that, but the episode doesn't really want to touch that notion. UNIT is perfect. UNIT good, Conrad bad. That's all it wants to say. And just in case the message of this episode was somehow too subtle for you, the Doctor shows up to scold Conrad and really hammer it home to the audience that this episode is about QAnon.
Cowards like you, weaponizing lies, taking people's insecurity and fear and making it currency. You stamp on the truth. choke our bandwidth, and shred our patience.
Again, like in the robot revolution, I think most sane people agree with everything the Doctor's saying here. QAnon is bad. But what is the point of this extremely surface-level commentary? You're not saying anything that we don't already know, but you're also not tackling the issue in a three-dimensional way that could cause somebody to rethink the error of their ways. And to me at least, Conrad ended up being so flat that he didn't make for a good villain and the story wasn't interesting. You made Conrad so cartoonishly evil and two-dimensional that he doesn't feel real. This kind of social commentary feels like it only exists to reaffirm people's pre-existing beliefs without wanting to actually engage with any of these issues in a nuanced way.
Conrad Clark takes down the establishment using a plot twist from Scooby-Doo.
If you're going to dedicate an entire episode to this topic, then I feel like you're obligated to explore the issue at least slightly beyond the surface level. That being said, even though I agree with some of the things this episode is trying to say about how disinformation campaigns are dangerous, if you want to be uncharitable, you could argue that Pete has now written 2 Doctor Who episodes where the moral is, don't question the establishment, and the episode ends with another cameo from Mrs. Flood who releases Conrad from prison.
And it's your lucky day.
That's the name of the episode. All right, we're done here.
But that's another story.
This is one of few episodes written by a brand new writer. And again, it's one of the better episodes in the season. Who could have seen that coming? Penned by Enua Elams and loosely based on his play The Barbershop Chronicles, the story and the engine stands out from the rest of the season.
I went to the National. I saw his play, The Barbershop Chronicles, and I loved that play. I loved it so much. So the trick was to take the show to him and say, there we go, put that into your world. I couldn't stop thinking, what about the Doctor walked into that barbershop?
When I was researching the play, I traveled across sub-Saharan Africa, just interviewing barbers and their clients, but the same pattern of relationships between barbers and clients kind of came up. And what the barbershops tended to give to these men is a place to hold court, to tell stories, to relax, to be beautified by other men.
Right off the bat, this story's creative setting pulled me in. A barbershop that's fueled by the stories of its customers, and also their hair. It's also nice to see an episode set entirely in Africa for once. This episode is rich with references to traditional African culture and folklore. However, I'm sorry to be a party pooper again, but I don't think this episode quite sticks the landing in regards to its execution. Yes, I know people like this episode. Yes, I know that I already criticized The Well, so by going in on this episode too, I'm digging my own grave. I don't know what to tell you. The episode opens with the Doctor telling us about the barbershop and how it's one of the only places in the universe he truly feels at home.
It's the first time I've had this black body. Some parts of the earth I'm now treated differently. In that barbershop, I'm accepted. We laugh, we tell stories, they
treat you like one of their own.
I really like that idea, the concept of a location outside the TARDIS that the Doctor feels comfortable visiting repeatedly. Granted, it would be nice if we saw that on screen more than once, since the show has a serious lack of reoccurring locations besides UNIT and its grey-ass headquarters. But when he arrives and realizes it's been taken over by the villainous barber and his friends have led him right into a trap, he crashes out.
Do not talk to me ever again. I trusted you with both of my hearts, with everything that I am.
On the one hand, sure, the Doctor feels violated because his sanctuary has been compromised and people he trusted betrayed him. On the other hand, they didn't really have a choice. They were prisoners of the barber and their lives were at risk. And the Doctor knows that, so the level to which he snaps at them feels quite unjustified. Once upon a time, I might have even called this out of character, but at this point, this has become pretty par for the course. The Doctor does come to forgive them in time, including the barber, because the moral of the episode is that hurt people hurt people. Worded exactly like that.
Hurt people, hurt people. Hurts people, hurts people.
Fresh off of Facebook. I also heard that real eyes realize real lies. But for what it's worth, the ending scene when they give the barber a second chance is quite sweet.
I've spent my entire existence serving the gods. What will I do now?
What you do best. Keep collecting stories.
Are you sure you want to show him mercy, Doctor? There's still time to turn him into sperm and then floss over his tombstone. Most of my issues with the episode can be chalked up to its wordy and extremely exposition-heavy dialogue. It feels like more than half of the dialogue in this episode is a character explaining what's currently going on, or explaining their backstory, or explaining their plan, or explaining how the Nexus works. It's a very explainy episode.
And the Nexus?
He built that too.
I wanted something like the brain. Flexible, strong.
And we're traveling on a spider.
Wait, you saw the beast?
There is a time-space compressor that is built into the door frame.
The script throws a lot at you at once. The main villains are gods, kinda, and they are weaving together a web of stories, and their ultimate plan is to wipe out the gods from existence. Yes, gods are canon now in the Doctor Who universe, and I'm not talking about the pantheon of gods we've already seen across this new era. I mean all the gods of human culture. The Egyptian gods, the Norse gods, the Greek gods. This episode seems to imply they all exist.
I go by many names. Anansi, Saga, even Loki.
He's lying to you. I met Dionysus. We drank so much wine we caused a drought in Athens. Saga and I watched Marvel movies up until Endgame.
Of course you watched Marvel movies. Marvel movies have gods and magic and all that jazz, and for most of its run, Doctor Who has kind of danced around that stuff without going all in on it, but in this most recent era, it's gone all in on it.
To fantasy felt like a very natural direction. It's always been on the edge of Doctor Who. It's always had little nods towards making a science fictional sense of fantasy elements, and I just decided to start dropping the nods and not even pretending that there's any rational explanation to this, that wild forces are at work in the universe.
I'm not saying I don't understand why Russell's decided to take the leap and just make gods and magic canon, but at the same time, finding a cute sci-fi explanation for something seemingly magical was part of what gave the show its identity, to me at least. Like, look, it's a werewolf. Oh no, it's actually a lupine wavelength hemuvoriform. Hey, it's a bunch of witches. No, actually, they're Carianites. Hey, look, it's the devil. No, actually, it's unclear exactly what this was. Maybe it is the devil, but it's never confirmed or denied. And that's the point. There's some room for you as a viewer to use your imagination to find an explanation for this. It may be a being from another universe, who knows. The point is that Doctor Who has always blended sci-fi with fantasy and theology in a way that's interesting. And I think dropping the sci-fi altogether is a big loss. So we find out that the barbershop is actually a spaceship which simultaneously exists in Lagos and on the back of a giant CGI spider. In order to power it, the barber needs stories. And because the Doctor has the best stories of them all, he wants the Doctor to be a permanent resident of his shop.
We will live, yeah!
We know he wants to kill the gods with the power of storytelling, but what that actually means is not super clear.
Cut them out of memory! The gods! All of them.
Cutting them from their essence will destroy them.
What impact is this going to have on the real world? I don't really know, but it would be bad, I think. It doesn't help that the episode's resolution is, again, very rushed. They go to the engine room and the Doctor takes control of it because he has the longest, bestest story of anyone, which overloads the engine and then everything explodes. So in short, he basically wins by showing a clip show of himself. Again.
No matter how right you feel, you have no idea who's going to die.
This is something the show really needs to stop doing. Like, we get it. He's awesome. Please find cleverer ways for him to win. That being said, I love the scene immediately before this when the Doctor has a map to victory styled into his hair by Abina.
Slaves were not allowed to carry paper, but the women were very clever. Hair could be braided to the scalp, bending and curling like roads or paths.
The slave masters never checked their hair, so they shaved roots like this and escaped to freedom.
That's an extremely creative idea, and the scene is extremely well done. In fact, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that this episode has a very unique and distinctive visual style that no other episode of the show really has, and it comes through full force in this scene. But within the realm of the plot, I do have to wonder why the barber is just standing there watching while Abina does this. Like, she's giving him a map to where he needs to go to defeat you and explaining that that's what she's doing right now. It's happening right in front of you and you're just watching it happen. And just to pile on a little more to the confusion, Joe Martin's fugitive doctor cameos in this episode. It seems from this interaction that the doctor has memories of his time as the fugitive doctor.
I couldn't take you with me. I was a fugitive back then. I was busy in a different story that might be finished one day.
This obviously doesn't really make sense, seeing as the Doctor had all his memories wiped of this part of his life. But, you know, who cares about that? Making sense? This is RTD2. We're past that. I've seen people theorizing about how this is possible, by the way. The internet seems to have settled on the theory that the Doctor opened the fob watch with all his memories inside of it at some point off screen. I think the real explanation is that Russell stuck this into an already finished script written by somebody else and didn't care about keeping continuity or logically building on what came before. Increasingly, it seems like the canon of the show is determined entirely by what the writer or showrunner can remember about past episodes while they're writing the script. I didn't mention this in the last video because there was so much else to talk about, but in Empire of Death, the whole plot is predicated on the idea that Sutekh was trapped in the time vortex, which is how he's able to latch onto the TARDIS, except that he wasn't trapped in the time vortex at the end of Pyramids of Mars, he was trapped in a time tunnel, which is not the same thing, but screw it, Russell remembered it as being the time vortex, so that's what it is now, because what the writer says goes. Remember how the toy maker said he made a jigsaw out of the Doctor's history?
I made a jigsaw out of your history. Did you like it?
That means nothing in the show has to make sense anymore. This is a tangent. Ultimately, I wish that I could say I liked this episode more than I do. It is very well directed, but unfortunately, most of its ideas just seem kind of half-baked. And yet it's probably like my third favorite episode from the season. Fancy that.
He didn't say I couldn't stay.
This is the one I was looking forward to talking about the least. Before we can even get into this episode, we're going to have to delve into some of the controversy surrounding Eurovision. Because, you know, it goes without saying that the Interstellar Song Contest is an obvious allegory for it. In fact, by design, it aired on the same day as Eurovision's finale, making it something of a companion piece to it. And as I'm sure you all know, Eurovision has come under heavy scrutiny in recent years, owing to Israel's ongoing involvement. I warn you now, we're going to have to get into some heavy subject matter here, so it's not going to feel as happy-go-lucky as the rest of the video, so if you don't think that's up your alley, feel free to skip this part. Despite the fact that the Israeli government has been breaking international law on a daily basis for years now, intentionally manufacturing a famine in Gaza, they have not been removed from the competition, despite all the backlash they've received, and despite the fact that Russia was removed for the war crimes they've committed in Ukraine. Some have argued it's partially because Eurovision is being sponsored by a huge Israeli company, Moroccan Oil, or it might have something to do with the Israeli government's tireless efforts to use Eurovision as a means of spreading propaganda to the rest of the world during an ongoing genocide, going as far as trying to rig the competition in Israel's favor. And still, they weren't removed from the competition. This is despite the fact that audible boos rang out through the arena as their team took to the stage, which were, of course, edited out for global transmission. Now, with this context in mind, let's talk about this stupid-ass kids show. In the episode, we see that the organization responsible for hosting the Interstellar Song Contest is responsible for committing a genocide against a group of people called Hellions. In fact, the contest is funded by a corporation that has directly profited from said genocide. Seems like a bit of an allegory.
I'm sorry. Your planet was invaded. The honey.
But here's the kicker. Within the episode's story, the Hellions are the antagonists. Well, not all Hellions are bad, just the militant ones, you see. More specifically, we see a group of activist Hellions who specifically target the Interstellar Song Contest because of their ongoing involvement with the corporation. Something that can also be kind of read as a parallel to real-life events. These activists are portrayed as terrorists who are bent on killing everybody at Eurovision. Sorry, the Interstellar Song Contest.
We're doing this for Helia. Those people can't be saved.
They also plan to transmit a certain frequency through everyone's TV that will kill them immediately. Because I guess TVs in the future can do that. I would have personally made sure that my brand of TVs didn't have the ability to transmit a death frequency if I were running a futuristic TV manufacturing company. But then again, with how tech billionaires are, maybe companies selling untested dangerous products isn't that far out of the realm of possibility. Anyways, we're told that this attack will lead to the deaths of 3 trillion people. This group of young and impressionable activists turned terrorists, led by a guy named Kid, want to do this as revenge for the destruction of their home world.
Hi.
Who the hell are you?
Who the hell are you? That's my species and my name is Kid.
That is the corniest villain introduction line I've ever seen in my life, oh my god. The Doctor gets caught up in this attack and is flushed out into space, and then we get a scene that may or may not be copied from The Last Jedi, where he floats back in. There is so much stuff ripped out of Star Wars and Marvel in this new era, it's killing me.
This is kind of my reaction to, bear with me now, those Star Wars films.
Then he quite easily foils their plan and starts torturing Kid for about a minute on end. Then the terrorists go to jail and everybody resumes the song contest like nothing happened. Now, if that seems remarkably tone-deaf to you, that's because it is. This episode does try to portray the Hellions as somewhat sympathetic. We even get to meet a nice Hellion who isn't a terrorist. One of the good ones, you could even say. She keeps the fact that she's Hellion secret because of the intense discrimination that her people face. However, she showcases a different method of protesting the genocide of her people at the end when she reveals to everybody that she's Hellion. The crowd is in uproar because they're all racist.
The song of my home planet, Helia.
But then she sings a song about how what happened is really sad. Then everybody claps, and racism is no more. We can just protest with the power of song, guys.
Cringe. There's no other word for it. This makes me cringe. It's embarrassing.
This episode is about as profound as a wet fart. What the fuck were they thinking with this, genuinely? It's like it's afraid of nuance. The script doesn't want to interrogate the issue that this society is deeply discriminatory towards Hellions and what that means for them going through life. We're just told everyone's racist.
I took a chance on you. No one employs Hellions.
But then a Hellion sings a song, and I guess they're not racist anymore, even though all of them were almost just murdered in a terrorist plot by some other Hellions. But the song was really powerful, so they're past that. But as controversial as this episode, of course, was, it also has many fierce defenders. If you criticize it, they'll say things like, Kid is a terrorist. He's trying to kill 3 trillion people. Obviously, the Doctor had to stop him. How could you side with him? Do you like terrorists? This is a straw man argument. Nobody that watched this episode sides with Kid. Obviously, he's a bad guy, and killing 3 trillion innocent people is bad. Being the victim of a genocide doesn't give you the right to commit another genocide, obviously. However, just because a group of people are written to be bad within the realm of a story you created doesn't mean you can't be questioned for crafting the story in that way. The exact same thing happened with the episode Kerblam a few seasons back. In that episode, a guy agitating for workers' rights is portrayed as a bloodthirsty terrorist.
People like me, my generation, we change things. We make things happen.
Even if it costs people's lives.
It's worth it for the cause.
This isn't a cause, you're not an activist, this is cold-blooded murder.
And people called it out for that, to which defenders of the episode say stuff like, well, he was trying to kill innocent people, obviously he was the bad guy. Yes, the writers chose to portray him as the bad guy and the big corporation as the victims, but it's worth asking why they chose to do that. What were they trying to say with this episode? The systems aren't the problem.
The systems aren't the problem.
Even though the Kerblam system is guilty of killing an innocent person to try to make a point, which the Doctor really just glosses over and never addresses. That's a whole other thing.
It took her knowing how you felt about her to show you how it would feel.
Like if I wrote an episode of a kid's show where civil rights activists are portrayed as violent terrorists who are planning a terrorist attack on, let's say, a predominantly white church, and then the main characters have to stop them to protect the white people, and you were like, that's a bit weird, why did you write that? And then I could theoretically retort, but within the story I wrote, they're bad guys who are trying to kill innocent people. Do you side with them? Please stop making this argument. Doctor Who has always presented itself as a show that gives a voice to the downtrodden and oppressed. So it's perfectly reasonable to ask why, at this point in time, after Gaza has been decimated, Juno Dawson and Russell T Davies decided to create an episode where a group of people who feel a hell of a lot like a metaphor for Palestinians are the villains. Survivors of a genocide are portrayed as bloodthirsty monsters who the Doctor has to mercilessly electrocute to protect Eurovision. That'll show those Palestinian protesters what's what. Actually, the Doctor doesn't have to electrocute him. He'd already won at that point. He just chooses to start electrocuting him. But it was really sad when he had to kill Sutek, though. And look, I don't know if the Hellions were originally meant to be a stand-in for Palestinians. It is true that the earliest drafts of this script were written in early 2023. However, the episode was filmed in the spring of 2024, months after the current wave of conflict in the Middle East began, and right around the time the Eurovision controversy was at its height. Even if this episode's political undertones were accidental, don't you think some rewrites might have been in order? Look, I'm not against writing a nuanced story with a morally gray villain that explores how victims of violence can go on to commit violence themselves, thus perpetuating a cycle. This show has explored that very theme in the past much more effectively than it did here. That being said, Kid doesn't even really qualify as what I think you could call a morally gray villain. He's just a baddie.
This is the greatest song contest in the universe, so as you would say, let's raise the roof. Do you know my favorite kind of music?
No matter what he says, he just can't stop being corny as fuck. Sad backstory or no, he's portrayed as a bloodthirsty maniac who just wants to kill and must be defeated. And that's a big part of the issue for me. Again, we get a cartoonish two-dimensional villain where there should have been nuance. A running theme this season. It's just kerblam all over again, but this time even worse. Both episodes present a member of a downtrodden class fighting for liberation from the oppressive system they live under, as rabid terrorists trying to kill people for no reason, and both episodes end with the Doctor punishing them, but not punishing the people who are actually responsible for said oppressive system. That's a big sticking point for me. Why doesn't this episode end with the Doctor taking down the corporation? Seriously, it might be slightly redeemable if the Doctor stopped Kid and then tore down the genocidal corporation that created him as well, but he doesn't. He just attends their stupid-ass event, fanboys about the performance, talks to Graham Norton, and then leaves. He says he might deal with the corporation at some point in the future, but that never happens. The Doctor also faces no consequences for torturing Kid. I thought maybe they were going to have it create some kind of rift between him and Belinda, but nope. She stares at him a little concerned for a second, and then it's never brought up again.
You're wonderful.
They once again come into zero conflict with one another, even though this would have been a perfect opportunity for it. Also, throughout this episode, Belinda refers to the Doctor as if she's known him for a long time, even though it's only supposed to have been like a few days? Not super clear.
That's not him.
I have a theory for why that is, but we'll get into that later. Even if we ignore the political undertones here, the Interstellar Song Contest is just not a very good episode on its own merits. The Doctor solves just about every issue he encounters with the wave of his sonic screwdriver, a tool which once existed principally to open doors, but now makes stuff randomly blow up when it's convenient for the plot.
In case I do this.
The Doctor doesn't carry a weapon, my ass. That thing's more powerful than a gun. And like most episodes this season, the resolution is so rushed and easy, it actually feels like a joke. A whole audience of people go through an extremely traumatic experience, almost dying in the vacuum of space, and then they all collectively shrug it off and then go back to partying at the end like nothing happened. PTSD? What's that? And for an episode that's supposedly about an interstellar song contest, the songs sure are bad. Seriously, we need to stop letting Russell write the lyrics for the songs in his episodes.
The past few days I just keep singing My Big Feet.
I'll be fair and say that the scene of the attack is very well directed. I especially love the sound design. There's no music and you just hear that horrible alarm blaring as everyone gets sucked out into space. It's really nice to see a scene that actually utilizes silence to its advantage. Oh wait, no, they stuff unnecessary music in 5 seconds later. This scene is a perfect example of one that should not have had music. It's so much better if you take the music out. That being said, the visuals are still great. The shot of all those lifeless bodies flying into the vacuum of space is haunting, one of the darkest visuals ever in Doctor Who. And then they decide to ruin it with a poorly timed joke.
Not again.
Because he was frozen at the beginning of the episode, get it? Also, the ending of the episode where they unfreeze everybody and they're all completely fine despite having been in the vacuum of space for like an hour kinda cheapens it. This era has a serious problem with tonal whiplash, and I guess I'd be loath not to mention the end of the episode when it's revealed that Mrs. Flood is the Ronnie. In case you were unaware, which I'm sure many people watching this for the first time were, the Ronnie is yet another villain from Classic Who. I guess Russell pulled her name from the hat this season. Then she bigenerates into 2 Ronnies. Sorry, I can't hear you guys over the music. Can you talk a little louder, please? I guess this was supposed to make me feel excited or something, but at this point I really just feel numb. Oh, and if you were wondering why she always breaks the fourth wall like Deadpool, you're gonna keep wondering that, my friend, because it's never elaborated upon. She just does. It's her quirk. Or more accurately, she just did, past tense, because she stops breaking the fourth wall from this point forward. If you're gonna make that be her quirk and then never explain it, you can at least commit to the bit. It feels even more out of place when she just stops doing it once she becomes important to the plot. It also makes it feel even more like Russell didn't know what character this was supposed to be at first.
I think ever since Mrs. Flood appeared, people have been saying she's the Rani, and sometimes you just want to deliver what people expect, which is so exciting. It was kind of the plan always from the beginning.
It was kind of the plan almost from the beginning? That's my new favorite sentence. I mean, it's pretty obvious Russell never had any kind of concrete plans for this era.
And there's nothing on a piece of paper for 8, it's just all up here.
No, I forget one of the way, but no one will know how it ends. Partly because I've decided there's a couple of ways you'll get to the ending. That's the choices I've got to make over the next few weeks.
Even Anita Dobson didn't seem to know what character she was playing before the reveal.
I actually had someone who tried to blackmail me into telling them
You did
about Mrs. Flood, yeah. And I have to tell you, I know nothing. My father used to say to me, if we were meant to know things, then we would know. If I was meant to know about Mrs. Flood, I would know. So I'm just going to love playing all these characters and just roll with it.
Yeah. So you're holding, inside Mrs. Flood all this time, one of the most famous, iconic Doctor Who villains of all time.
I don't know how long she's been in there, but she's certainly out and running now, yeah.
All in all, what a mad episode. The only fitting way to end it would be to have the TARDIS randomly and inexplicably explode. Cool. I don't think much more has to be said here. This episode is terrible, and as far as I'm concerned, it's kind of a blight on the show's record. And guess what? Speaking of blight on the show's record, there's another thing I didn't even mention because I had so much other stuff to talk about, but this episode brings back Susan. Like the Doctor's granddaughter, Susan, remember her? Her return has been like the single most anticipated thing in the show since forever. Yeah, she randomly shows up like halfway through the episode just to say, "Grandfather?"
Go back, grandfather. Go back.
He's frozen in space and could be dying. I wanted something extraordinary to bring him back. It was a great moment sitting with Juno, who wrote that script, to say, please, can you put in Susan?
Oh, and after the Doctor defeats Kid and then decides to start torturing him, she pops up to tell him to stop. And he ignores her. And it's Belinda staring at him slightly concerned that gets him to stop torturing a genocide survivor. This implies in some way that his connection with Belinda is deeper than his connection with Susan, which is... Yeah, actually, I'm just going to move on, honestly. Oh, and none of this is followed up on in the next few episodes, because it's just there as a nostalgia bait and set up for some mystery box that may or may not ever actually get finished. Fuck this episode, man. Wishworld is the first slice of Russell's epic 2-part season finale. This story is supposed to be the conclusion to all kinds of plot threads that Russell's been teasing since last season, so going in, I was sincerely hoping he would do a better job than he did last season. And then he did even worse. Let's just start at the beginning. Wishworld opens with the Ronnie showing up and kidnapping a baby that is later revealed to be magic.
I will be taking little baby. Dankeschön. He's all mine.
Excuse me? I don't think so. Give me my child back.
You see, this baby grants the wishes of whoever's holding him, so the Ronnie immediately uses him to murder his entire family.
Your wife is Violet.
Witchcraft.
Just skirting the whole magic babies are now canon to Doctor Who thing. This scene really jumps out at me as being poorly executed. Like, the acting is weirdly muted.
Witchcraft.
That's his reaction to seeing his wife murdered before his very eyes. Just witchcraft. I know that people spoke differently in the 1800s, but I think that they still had feelings. And why did they frame the shot like this? Why is he behind her slightly out of focus? He doesn't feel like an active presence in the scene at all.
Get out! All of you children! Get out now! Run!
That's right. Waddle away.
Why is this man making absolutely no effort to physically restrain her? Why does this man have no expression on his face whatsoever while watching his children be turned into ducks? Then the Ronnie turns the father into an owl, and I feel like he honestly shows more emotion as an owl than he did as a human. And is that just a black bar at the top of the screen that the editors left there because they didn't align the shot properly in the timeline? That's shockingly amateur. I'm not trying to be nitpicky here, but this is a really poorly executed scene, and it's the first scene of the two-part finale. I really feel like something must have gone wrong here. According to the behind-the-scenes footage, Russell wasn't on set that day, and the animals they were working with were giving them trouble.
I happily write 6 ducks knowing I won't be there on that day. Knowing it's going to be chaos and a nightmare.
Apart from the horse micturating in the middle of the take, it was fantastic.
After this, we see that the Doctor and Belinda apparently think that they're married and are living a life of domestic bliss. They even think that they have a daughter named Poppy. And if you recognize that name, that's because Poppy is the same baby from Space Babies.
I'm Captain Poppy, and I kept the station running.
It seems that they've been ensnared in some kind of false reality where Conrad is Big Brother.
Really nice weather all over the world. Happy morning, everyone.
Happy morning, Conrad.
So it seems like the Doctor and Belinda are living in some kind of idealized 1950s sitcom version of the world.
I ask you, how can anyone doubt this glorious world that we live in?
One that we later find out was wished into existence by Conrad because the Ronnie gave him the magic baby to create this world. But as the episode goes on, there are more and more strange occurrences around the Doctor that gradually snap him out of his delirium. If this seems eerily similar to the setting of WandaVision to you, you're not the only one that came to that conclusion, and let's just be honest, it probably was Russell's version of WandaVision. So you might ask, why is the Ronnie doing this? What is her endgame here? I mean, seriously, she literally had a magic baby at her disposal. Why didn't she just use that to turn the Doctor into a toad or something and be rid of him? Well, you see, the reason that she gives the baby to Conrad to create his ideal world is because the world Conrad will create will be really imperfect, and the Doctor will start doubting it. And as the Ronnie is kind enough to tell us, she is harnessing the power of doubt as a fuel source so that she can restore Gallifrey.
Doubt can crack open the world.
Every time someone starts realizing things are off, reality will slip, which basically means a mug will fall through a table and break. And that's especially useful for the Ronnie's nefarious purposes because of her aforementioned ability to turn doubt into fuel. Glad we got that sorted. Oh, and we never find out why the TARDIS exploded at the end of the last episode, by the way. It's just there to be a cool cliffhanger for this episode, I suppose. Russell is really pushing me to the brink of insanity this season. The main thing that causes the Doctor to start questioning the world around him is an appearance from Rogue. Yeah, remember Rogue, the murderer guy from the last season that the Doctor had a crush on? Well, he suddenly appears on the Doctor's television and tells him exactly what he needs to hear.
Doctor, can you hear me? I haven't got much time. They're coming. Remember, tables don't do that.
And then we never get any kind of explanation for why he showed up or how he showed up or how he knows what's going on or anything. Look, I don't want to be uncharitable here, but when it's that important of a plot point, when it's literally the thing that sets the Doctor on the path to realizing that the world around him is fake.
Tables don't do that. He's right, that is not what tables are supposed to do.
Don't you think that there should at least be some rhyme or reason to why a character from the past randomly pops up and knows what's going on, apparently? That would be like if in WandaVision, Iron Man just showed up and told Vision that the world around him was fake, and then we never got any kind of explanation for how that happened. And by God, that is the ugliest shot in this entire era. I think it actually dethrones the David Tennant floating in space shot from the beginning of the Star Beast. That is just hideous to look at. How did they make it look that bad? Basically, all that happens in this episode that's important is that the Doctor eventually snaps out of his psychosis, and then the Ronnie explains her evil plan to him in great detail.
That's why I needed you trapped inside the wish. Because this isn't just exposition, Doctor.
I beg to differ on that. By the way, I just have to ask, but why did Russell make her the Ronnie and not the god of storytelling or something? Like, in this episode, she's literally using the power of storytelling to break apart the world. Like, you could have had her be part of the pantheon of gods and all that stuff you've been setting up. And better yet, this could have been an explanation for some of the loose ends from the last season, like how Ruby was able to make it snow. It's because Mrs. Flood, the god of storytelling, had been pulling strings Ruby's entire life in order to get her together with the Doctor. Ruby is set up as a character with a fairy tale life. Her life is full of coincidences. She was left at a church by a mysterious figure in the middle of the night. I think it would be cool if in this episode it was revealed that the god of storytelling had been manipulating her life specifically to set a trap for the Doctor. It's established that every god of the pantheon needs a harbinger.
Harbinger. The gods bring harbingers to warn us of their coming.
So, like, you know, what if you had a twist reveal that this whole time Ruby had been Mrs. Flood's harbinger without her even knowing?
There's a hidden song deep inside her soul!
It would explain why she's the only character who can see through the wish world, which, as is, just isn't really explained.
Are you the Doctor?
What, you need a doctor? Is everything okay?
And as for Mrs. Flood being the god of storytelling, that would explain why she could break the fourth wall and why she spent years living as Ruby's neighbor. She even talked like a god.
Do you believe in the power of prayer? Then tell your Maker, I will come to storm down his gates of gold and seize his kingdom in my true name.
The pieces just fall into place. Like, literally anything they could have done would have been cooler than making her the Ronnie. It's so random. The episode concludes with the world ending and the Doctor plummeting to his doom.
I have a daughter! Poppy is real! Do you know what that means?
And that's how the episode leaves us. One thing you may have noticed is this episode's political undertones. Conrad's version of reality is implied to be very conservative, and it has no place for people who don't fit into his society. This includes disabled people.
This is how we live. The disabled, dispossessed, the ones who don't fit in.
Unmarried women.
I'm single, no parents, no children, so I will sit in silent contemplation and be jolly glad.
And people who aren't straight.
You're a beautiful man. Was that supposed to mean?
No. You're a man. How can you find another man beautiful?
Sure, the political commentary is about as subtle as a sledgehammer smashing through a pane of glass, but, you know, it could go somewhere interesting in the next episode. Right? But before we move on, I want to take a moment to talk about this episode's presentation, and for that matter, the presentation of the season as a whole. This is the episode where I really started to realize how much I don't like the way they've chosen to block many of the scenes in this new era. It's ironic because I went out of my way to praise the blocking in the Star Beast, but since then we've somehow regressed back to everybody standing awkwardly around facing the camera like it's a play. It just doesn't look natural. Everybody always looks like they've been posed for a shot. I'm not a fan of how they chose to light or color correct this episode either. Like, look at the Ronnie's base. Why would you drench this set in so much light? It makes it look like the Teletubbies headquarters. During the production of this episode, Russell took a selfie in the set, and without the overabundance of lighting, it looks better. The reds of the set really pop without having all this skylight drowning it out. Whatever happened to the atmospheric lighting of days past? It seems a lot less common now. Now there seems to be a lot more priority placed on making sure everything is always perfectly lit. Just let the scene look natural and grimy, and you don't have to be afraid of shadows. I think The Well is a perfect example of an episode that should look dark and atmospheric, and yet everything's always bright. That's not to say there are no scenes in this season that do have good atmospheric lighting, but for some reason, pretty much every episode this era looks super desaturated, like the colors have been sucked out of it. And even these nicely lit scenes unfortunately fall victim to that. Like if you just allowed the colors to pop, these scenes would look so much nicer. Then there are some other more minor visual oddities, like that one scene in Joy to the World that has a diffusion effect placed over the footage to make it look all warm and glowy like the Lord of the Rings films. It works by making light bleed into surrounding areas, which kind of softens the image. But to my mind, it's far too intense here, and it makes the footage look extremely odd and stand out from everything else around it. There are also several scenes throughout the season with visibly inconsistent black points. One of Doctor Who's most well-known directors, Rachel Talalay, who, by the way, helmed Heaven Sent, pointed out on Blue Sky that it seems like the shade of the mugs is ever so slightly different between shots, and she generously tried to say that this could have been a creative decision of some kind, but I heavily doubt it. I think it's just some weird discrepancy in the color correcting. But that's so minor, it's not even worth caring about. Maybe I'm being a bit nitpicky here. I'm sure there's nothing in this episode that actually looks bad enough to stand out.
All he does is chuckle.
Oh my god. Why would you do that? On behalf of all humankind, I'm formally asking Bad Wolf Studios to stop CGIing babies. Please and thank you.
War. War never changes.
Bad. This finale is bad. Like, it's really, really bad. I know this isn't a profound statement on my part. The reality war is probably the most infamous finale that the show has ever had, which is really quite an accomplishment when you think about it. I think the popular opinion at this point is that the show hasn't had a good finale since 2017. In many ways, the way this episode was written is actually quite fascinating. It's trying to do so much, and it managed to almost surgically piss every single corner of Doctor Who's fandom off in different ways. The first thing that happens is that as the Doctor plunges to his doom, at that precise moment, a door to the Time Hotel opens up, and Anita pulls him inside.
Welcome to the Time Hotel.
Yep, saved by a magic door.
Magic door? He had an actual magic door, the little...
Look, I could cry Deus Ex Machina till the cows come home, but if I stop every time this episode has something that could be argued a Deus Ex Machina, we're gonna be here for a long time. She then tells him that she's been looking for him for some time now, and we get the first of many uses of archival footage in this episode.
On my days off, I go looking for you.
There's something hilarious about the image of her opening a door on him, clearly in distress and in need of help, and then just closing the door on him slowly and walking away. That being said, there are still far more awkward moments in his timeline she could have opened the door on.
Alien spy!
Then he returns to Earth and is able to snap everyone out of their delirium because Anita opens doors to the Time Hotel, which allows everyone to see the truth.
These are doorways into real time, allowing you to see the truth.
I'm wearing a suit.
I'm wearing tweed.
Yeah, they just air out the wish world with the hotel lobby air like it's a bad fart that you can blow away with a fan. And that's it for the whole WandaVision vibe that the last episode had. That whole thing is just swept under the rug after that point, so if you liked it, sorry. Instead, this episode's first few scenes are just endless spouts of expository dialogue. Again, first with Anita.
Make 24 never arrives, it resets. Yes, midnight, and it all connects back to 7 a.m. on May 23rd. The hotel's in spasm. Because we're in 4202 and North ending in 2025.
Then at Unit.
Now, the Trinity had wished this world into existence, Conrad's world, but he couldn't imagine everything. So he used us. We half remembered ourselves, living Conrad's version of an ordinary life.
Then with the Ronnie.
The time was slotted. How did you survive?
I saw it coming, the genetic explosion. I had a split second. Flipped my DNA, made a biological sidestep, survived the cunning.
How did you get to Earth? Time ring. Poor lady.
I feel like I'm attending a lecture right now.
Omega, the one who discovered time travel. Some call him the original sin of the Time Lords. Cast out from Gallifrey. Legend says that they bound him and banished him.
That genetic
because he is
explosion,
insane.
it didn't kill us, but it roasted us and sterilized us. Extinction.
A mad woman and a maniac came up with a ridiculous plan.
They're both the Rani.
We bi-generated.
Sometimes I think that's what my generation is. Courtney is so special because she is impossible.
And the dialogue here really is not particularly good. Apart from how unnatural the exposition can feel, everybody talks like a robot.
It is the Rani.
She's still alive. I fought the Rani when I travelled with the Doctor all those years ago.
Who talks like this, George?
Old school fans will recall that Mel encountered the Rani in the classic series, and so obviously that has to be addressed when they come face to face in this episode. So what do they say to each other? Mel looks at her and literally says, "We meet again."
Melanie, we meet again.
Hey, at least he remembered that they met at all. I honestly wouldn't have put it past him to just forget it happened and never acknowledge it. There's also some inconsistencies in her dialogue, like in Wish World, she claims to be single with no parents and no children. And yet at the beginning of this episode, when everyone snaps out of it, she says she's been a housewife?
I have been a housewife.
A housewife to who? You literally just said you're single.
I'm single.
Look, I've praised Russell's dialogue in the past for feeling natural. I had a whole segment in my Every Doctor Ranked video specifically talking about how he avoids making his characters talk in cliche monologues, and yet he seems to have been going out of his way to make me regret that as much as possible. No one here talks like a sapient being. It's just a checklist of information the audience needs so that we can move on. And even so, with all this expository dialogue, he still leaves a bunch of stuff completely unexplained. I guess that's what happens when you create this many loose ends over the course of 2 seasons and leave only 1 episode to resolve them all. There's really not enough time to give everything the attention it needs. Like, for instance, why did the Rani spend years living in disguise as Ruby's neighbor and then later as Belinda's neighbor? Genuinely, what was the point of this deception? What information did this provide her?
Took a lot of planning spying on those two. God blimey. Look at that police box.
She spent years doing this, and we never find out what the point of it was. Oh, it was to gather intel on the Doctor's companions. Why? For what purpose? What did she use that for? On that note, how did she know about them in the first place? Why did she seem completely omnipotent in her early appearances? No clue, no idea, and I haven't the foggiest, respectively. That being said, we do get some answers. 2 years out, Russell finally offers up an explanation for what bi-generation is and why it suddenly started happening. Apparently, it was the result of the Master's genocide of the Time Lords in the Timeless Children.
That genetic explosion, it didn't kill us, but it roasted us and sterilized us.
We are infertile.
We're a biological dead end.
Somehow he attacked every single Time Lord cell across the entire universe at once, which made it impossible for them to ever regenerate, but they can bi-generate.
Sometimes I think that's what bi-generation is. A life force trying anything it can to survive.
Honestly, this explanation might resonate a bit more with audiences if we ever found out how the Master killed all the Time Lords, somehow, single-handedly, off-screen. But we never did. To be fair though, that blame rests squarely on Chibnall's shoulders, not Russell's. Regardless, it completely contradicts the fan consensus on bi-generation. Before this episode aired, a number of people were very passionate in their defense of the bi-generation on the grounds that it was explained. You see, bi-generation is established as a myth, and because the toy maker is there and he's bringing myths into reality, and also like Saltline, it happened because myths are now real. And obviously, it's a one-time thing. There's no way that there's going to be another bi-generation, obviously. At first, a lot of people seemed confused about this, but as time went on, this theory was accepted more and more as the canonical explanation, to the point that criticizing it could get you accused of lacking media literacy. The only problem is that it was clearly wrong. Looking back on this scene now, I genuinely think Russell was just trying to set up a mystery, and this was supposed to be the payoff, which is funny in hindsight. Who's lacking media literacy now, boy? I'm just kidding, this writing is complete nonsense. No one lacks media literacy for not understanding it. So after, I shit you not, 20 minutes of endless exposition scenes, we learn that the Rani's plan involves erasing the Wish World from existence once it's no longer of use to her, which will in turn erase Poppy.
What would happen to Poppy?
She would cease to exist.
Look, I don't want to keep bringing up WandaVision here, but that is just legitimately ripped straight out of WandaVision, like completely. The main characters have a child within this false reality that can only survive so long as the false reality continues to exist.
You tied your family to this twisted world, and now one can't exist without the other.
And keep in mind, this comes after last season's finale was a shameless ripoff of Infinity War, and after he changed unit headquarters to be a tower that was a clear riff on the Avengers Tower, and after he established the Whoniverse, which was a clear attempt to turn Doctor Who into a Marvelized expanded universe, and even the logo is a clear ripoff of the Marvel logo. Russell, I get that you like Marvel, but like... Man, you're taking it too far. Wait a second, is that why the Ronnie acts like a witch in this story? Because the villain in WandaVision was Agatha, who is a witch? I don't even know anymore. Anyways, everything that the Ronnie is doing is so that she can rip a hole in space and time, creating a gateway to the Underverse where she hopes to find Omega, the only Time Lord in existence not affected by the Master's genetic explosion, and then sample his DNA in order to recreate the Time Lords and restore Gallifrey.
He will work as a gene bank. With his body, I can resurrect the Time Lords and construct a new Gallifrey.
So... on paper, I guess the logic is kind of sound. You know, Omega was outside the universe when the Master unleashed the genetic attack, so presumably his DNA has been untouched. Even if the rest of the plan seems a little needlessly over-convoluted, what really perplexes me is the Ronnie's motivation. Since her inception, the Ronnie has always been shown to hate all other Time Lords.
Since you were exiled from Gallifrey, you've had nothing but contempt for all other Time Lords.
My contempt started long before my exile.
She's a lone wolf. She doesn't see any value to life unless it directly benefits her, and she felt no kind of allegiance to Gallifrey just because she was born there. So why exactly has she now decided that her life's mission is to restore Gallifrey? I'm genuinely trying to understand what she gains from this. Like, bringing back the Time Lords is just gonna reignite the Time War. Is that something you want? Is that your end game here? Fuck it, no time to ask questions, gotta move on. So the Doctor instructs Susan Twist, one of the characters of all time, to build a zero room.
I need you to build me that in record time. Can you do that?
Consider it done, sir.
This is a room that exists outside of time and space itself.
Call it a zero room. It is beyond time and space. It will exist outside of reality.
From its descriptions in the classic series, I always assumed it was an extremely advanced piece of Time Lord technology, but apparently UNIT is capable of building one in like 15 minutes on their own with materials that were already in their possession. The Doctor just gives them one little blueprint and that's all they need. Isn't that like basically what the Pandorica was? Like a box that exists outside of time and space, and it was one of the most valuable objects in the universe because of that, and now a bunch of humans can just like build one casually on their lunch break. No time to dwell on that though. The reason the Doctor had it constructed was so that Poppy could wait inside of it. Since the Ronnie's plan involves erasing her from existence, he theorizes that if she waits inside the Zero Room, she will still be there after the world resets.
In a cargo box?
Then we get an action scene where the Doctor flies around on a bone Segway. I mean, this is obviously peak, I can't say a word against this. As this is happening, Ruby teleports into Conrad's big brother room, scolds him a bit, and then takes the magic baby away from him.
I wish you to be happy.
But unfortunately, they're too late to stop Omega. As he emerges from his big round door, we see that Omega has transformed into a giant bone monster thing.
What is it?
The Underverse is a world of legends, so Omega has become his own legend.
He was once a man, now he's a giant bone goblin. I accept it, Russell. Everything else in this episode is bone-themed anyways, so it matches. Well, it turns out that despite the fact that the Ronnie is obsessed with bone architecture, she actually had no idea that Omega is a bone monster now, and I guess she just kind of lucked out that her theming perfectly matched the aesthetic of her new master. Despite that, their partnership doesn't last long.
I think you'll find...
Yes, 5 seconds after Omega appears, he eats the Ronnie, and I shit you not, that's how she's defeated. Russell brought back this character after 30-odd years so that he could barely do anything with her and have her get gobbled up. And I know what you're thinking, what about the other Ronnie? There are two of them after all.
May I introduce to you the Ronnie?
So So much for the two Ranis. It's a good night from me.
Nah, she just dips and is never heard from again. 2 seasons of build-up for Mrs. Flood culminate in her making a pop culture reference that 90% of viewers won't get and then leaving.
So much for the two Ranis.
This era is a social experiment. Now, my expectations for this episode were low going in, but this took me back. I couldn't believe that they were actually going to leave her character on that note. It's established repeatedly that the original Ronnie, the Mrs. Flood one, is sick of being bossed around by the new Ronnie.
Do this, do that. Can I cut your toenails, ma'am? Snip, bloody snip.
And the new Ronnie feels contempt for the old one.
Careful, ma'am. I'm not a child. You're my child in the manner of speaking. You sprang from my loins.
That's the most disgusting thing I've ever heard.
They are both clearly shown to resent each other. I naively thought that this was actually leading somewhere. I thought the Doctor might pick up on this mutual resentment and use it to turn the Ronnies against each other. Especially when Omega showed up, I thought this might be a bridge too far for Mrs. Flood, who would end up helping the Doctor to defeat her other self. But nah. The Ronnie just gets eaten by a big bone monster, and then Mrs. Flood nopes out and just doesn't show up again. Well, that's certainly one way to resolve this arc. Also, Mrs. Flood, considering that this version of the Ronnie is supposed to be your future self, that's an odd lack of reaction to seeing her die, because you're watching yourself die in the future. Or is she your future self? Or is bigeneration just like mitosis? That's not what was implied in the giggle.
You're older than me.
That is true. He's younger because you came after him.
I'm fine because you fix yourself. We're doing rehab out of order.
Wait a second, what's this? RTD suggests bigeneration affected every Doctor, creating a Doctor-verse? It didn't just affect the 14th Doctor, it also affected all the Doctor's previous regenerations. A whole timeline bigenerated? What? Fuck it, I have no idea how bigeneration works, and I don't think Russell knows either. Screw it, no more Ronnies, now it's just the Doctor versus Omega. I'll bite.
I am free to feast upon this world.
The stage is set for a truly epic battle. Who knows, maybe despite all odds, Russell will take the character of Omega somewhere interesting. Or the Doctor could just shoot a laser at him and defeat him immediately. Alright. Omega was one of the most interesting villains in Doctor Who's original run. He was the Time Lord who made time travel possible for the rest of his kind, but unfortunately during the process he got lost in the sauce and was presumed dead.
I was to be the one to find and create the power source that would give us mastery over time itself.
Well, you succeeded and are revered for it.
Revered? My brothers became Time Lords. But I was abandoned and forgotten.
He ended up trapped alone in a dimension of his own creation for countless years. He wasn't an evil man per se, but after living God knows how many lifetimes completely on his own, stewing in resentment over having been abandoned by his own people, he starts to lose his mind, as one would under those circumstances. The next time we saw him, he was desperately trying to claw his way back into our universe to enact his revenge, but ultimately the Doctor foiled his plans and then shot him with this science fair gun thing, which makes him start aggressively wiggling and sparking and slowly fading away. And that was it for Omega. So, it's one thing to inexplicably bring this character back to life and have him look and act nothing like he used to. It's another to immediately kill him off without even using him for anything. Well, except to eat the Ronnie. And the way the Doctor describes him doesn't feel accurate. The original sin of the Time Lords who was cast out because he was insane?
Legend says that they bound him and banished him because he is insane.
That's not what happened. He went insane because he was cast out, not the other way around. That's like the whole tragic thing of his character. Even the way he pronounces it is different. Instead of saying Omega, now he says Omega.
Omega.
Look, I understand that in storytelling, sometimes it's okay to bend things to your will a little bit. You don't have to perfectly adhere to every piece of the show's 60-plus year canon. But, like, If you don't want to use Omega, why make the character Omega at all? It could have just been another random bone monster. What is it with Russell and randomly bringing back famous villains from the original series but making them act nothing like they used to? Does he have a dartboard of characters from the classic series he could bring back next week at his writing desk? What's the point of this other than soullessly trying to cash in on nostalgia? And why is it always resolved via Deus Ex Machinas every time? Also, why doesn't Omega just grab the Doctor? His arms are clearly long enough. His hands are directly above him. Use them, Omega. That's what they're for. That's without even getting into the Vindicator just randomly turning into a laser gun with an ammo pack on it that comes out of nowhere. This is just giving me intense flashbacks to Empire of Death, when Sutekh just let the Doctor and Ruby pull him into the time vortex and made no attempt to stop them, despite having the ability to paralyze people with his mind. Oh, and by the way, Sutekh was also defeated in part by a random laser beam that came out of nowhere. Laser beams have been quite deadly on this show as of late. The 14th Doctor also died to a laser beam, and the 13th Doctor also died to a laser beam, and the 12th Doctor also died to a laser beam. And that's without even getting into the fact that this whole climax feels like an abstract copy of The End of Time. Except there, instead of the Ronnie and Omega, it was the Master and Rassilon.
Back into the Time War, Rassilon! Back into hell!
Rassilon, like Omega, is trying to come back from the dead to re-establish the Time Lords, and the Master, like the Ronnie, realizes at the last moment that they've made a huge mistake by helping the Time Lords and turns against them. We are circling the drain at this point, just doing the same things over and over again with no end in sight, and the odd decisions just keep coming. It was a huge point of contention that Russell changed the design of the sonic screwdriver to look like a vibrator remote because he was scared the old design looked too much like a gun. If you're going to fundamentally alter the look of one of the most iconic parts of the show because it's too similar to a gun, then why the hell would you include a scene where the Doctor launches a bazooka laser at the bad guy to defeat them? This looks too much like a gun, but this doesn't? Oh my god, it's all just nonsense.
Rest in peace, my granny, she got hit by a bazooka.
Oh, and by the way, we're only halfway through the episode. The defeat of the main villain comes in the middle of its runtime. Most of the second half of the episode is the product of reshoots. The Doctor rushes back to Unit and then opens the Zero Room, revealing Poppy is still safely inside. Then we get a scene with Carla and Cherry where we see the Wish baby get adopted.
Who is the best mother in the world?
I mean, it's definitely not Carla.
This little brat arrives ruining my holiday. Even your real mother didn't want you. I think you need to come and take her away.
We then cut to a scene in the TARDIS where the gang are hanging out without a worry in the world, just chatting about how everything that just happened to them makes absolutely no sense.
How come my memory was different? Why did I remember things that no one else could?
I have no idea, but we have seen many a strange thing together, Ruby Roo.
This is basically just lampshading at this point. But then, suddenly, Poppy disappears. I literally haven't said a single kind thing about this episode up to this point, so allow me to offer one compliment. The scene where Poppy vanishes is very well done. The Doctor and Belinda pass her coat back and forth, and it slowly gets smaller and smaller until it vanishes.
And galaxies.
Oh.
I want to see the Big Bang.
Mate, we will have the best of times.
Where's she gone?
Who?
Poppy.
Who's Poppy?
What do you think the cot is?
For whatever reason, only Ruby can remember what was lost. And I do mean for whatever reason because we never really find out why.
I have no idea.
It might have something to do with 73 yards, maybe. That's as much as we're gonna get. And this is the final scene from the original version of the episode. Everything from here on out is the product of reshoots. You can tell because the second they all step out of the TARDIS, Millie Gibson's eyebrows change. I suspect that the original ending would have had Ruby also forgetting about Poppy after everyone else. But in this version, she keeps insisting. And both the Doctor and Belinda are kind of massive assholes to her.
You have a daughter, the two of you together.
Your memory got a little bit scrambled.
You are remembering this wrong.
It's kind of offensive to say I've got a daughter I don't remember.
But in the end, she is able to convince them.
There's another world, a slightly different reality, and it might just be a tiny little change, but she's a child. Her name is Poppy, and she's lost somewhere out there.
I have a daughter.
Yes.
And this is the scene that has the line in it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's probably the most infamous line from this era. Russell has written some clunkers before in his time.
He's killing me.
I think you need a doctor.
Ugh, but I think most can agree this one takes the cake.
Sometimes I think we're all your children.
Sometimes I think we're all your children? Yeah, what does that mean, Kate? According to the music, that was a really powerful line though, so I guess it's time to start feeling emotional. Oh, and if you can believe it, the scene actually has the balls to start setting up more story arcs for the future before we've even finished half-baking this one.
They say hello, by the way.
Who does?
The boss.
Okay. Parking that.
Like, after everything you've put me through, Russell, you actually expect me to care who the boss is? Why should I? It's just gonna end up being the Valeyard, or the Black Guardian, or the Meddling Monk, or some other random classic Who villain you pulled out of a hat, and then the Doctor will defeat them by shooting a laser beam at them. It's not even worth the emotional effort required to suspend my disbelief and become absorbed in the story, especially when we're already in the middle of hastily wrapping up a completely different story. Speaking of which, the Doctor says the time must have shifted by 1 degree, which is why Poppy faded away.
Time has shifted by 1 degree.
So he pledges to restore it. Then we get another clip show of all the Doctor's past faces because clearly we haven't had enough of those.
Oh, man.
I don't know, guys, but I think there might be a way to cram slightly more fan service into the scene. How about an inexplicable cameo from the 13th Doctor?
I was the best.
Okay, let's say best male.
Nah, that's still not enough. We need to go into overdrive. We need a catchphrase that's been absolutely run into the ground from overuse.
You've redecorated. I don't like it.
Okay, it's official. This scene is epic sauce. Russell, you just won the internet, my dude. Take a hecking up, dude. In all sincerity, I actually found it kind of nice to see the 13th Doctor pop up in this scene. I mean, it comes completely out of nowhere, but after feeling for years like Jodie got shortchanged by her writing, it's nice to see the show honor her in some small way. It can now also be argued that the worst episode she appeared in isn't actually in her era. So she has that going for her now. And at least they had the good sense to change this line from the original draft of the script where the 13th Doctor says, "Blimey, you're gorgeous. Your skin is really quite something." And the Doctor says, "Might be my final skin if I get this wrong." Yeah, it was probably better leaving that one on the cutting room floor. That being said, this scene is still largely just here to convey exposition to the audience.
So I am going to punch a ton of regeneration energy into the vortex to jolt it 1 degree.
Giving your life.
The Doctor says that there's no chance of a bi-generation.
No chance of bi-generation.
Why? Because Russell's done with bi-generation now. It had a good run, no one will miss it. After this, the Doctor goes Super Saiyan God mode and pumps his regeneration into the TARDIS, which is able to reset the timeline, fixing all the glitches caused by the Ronnie. He wakes up in Belinda's garden only to find out she's with Poppy. Turns out, Poppy was her real daughter the whole time.
I kept telling you every time we landed.
I told you, get me home. 24th of May, 2025. I need to get back for Poppy. Poppy's waiting for me.
My daughter.
I've got to be home for Poppy on May the 24th. If I'm not back by 7:30, I'm in trouble. I can't wait for you to meet Poppy.
Thank you for this great montage of things that never happened because you reshot the footage to make it different.
Doctor, I told you, get me home.
I am.
Russell could genuinely teach a university-level course on how to gaslight an audience. Okay, let me try to be fair here. I don't think this episode earned it, but you could also interpret this as saying that Poppy wasn't always supposed to be Belinda's daughter, but rather the Doctor rewrote time to make it so.
100% human?
That seems to contradict everything he said. He said time was off by 1 degree and he had to manually fix it, which implies restoring things to how they should be, but this clearly isn't how things should be because she didn't have a daughter before this. We saw her living at home. There was no Poppy there. And if the Doctor did in fact change the timeline to make Poppy real, that means he just rewrote Belinda's entire life to force her into motherhood for a child that's not actually hers. It's just a clone of a random baby he met once. Yeah, sorry about your career, Belinda, you're gonna have to give up on that. And all that setup about Poppy being the Doctor's child, that all goes nowhere.
I have a daughter.
Yes.
It doesn't make any sense either way you look at it. It's just gibberish.
I have a daughter! Poppy is real! Do you know what that means?
Well, I guess it means nothing. And I'm just looking at this from a logic perspective. From a character perspective, it's even worse. It was never set up in any way, shape, or form that Belinda wanted to have a child. She never spoke about it. She never indicated a feeling that there was something missing in her life. Hell, we didn't see anything of her family life before this story. Her parents show up for the first time in Wishworld, and we never even get to meet Poppy's father. It kind of seems a little bit like the idealized housewife version of Belinda that Conrad wished into reality is what she actually becomes, which is extremely odd messaging. At least Poppy's cute, though.
Whose house is this?
It's Shooty's house.
What?
Belinda tells the Doctor she will no longer travel with him because she has to look after her daughter, and then he goes back to the TARDIS and regenerates.
This has been an absolute joy.
Yep, that's apparently it for Shooty Got Was Doctor. He didn't have much material to sink his teeth into, and now he's gone. But on the bright side, at least there's no way Russell could stick any more fan service into this episode. Okay, I'm out. This show is completely cooked. And that's the reality war. Even that name, man, it's just like, what is the reality war? There's no war in this episode. It's all over in 5 minutes. That's just like the most generic, like you could call, like half of Doctor Who finales could be called the reality war. Never mind. I mean, this episode has managed to turn some of the most diehard RTD defenders against the show. And that's impressive. It feels borderline insulting to the intelligence of its own viewers. Almost every time a character mentions something that already happened, the editors feel it necessary to insert a flashback to said thing, just in case you are genuinely an idiot.
That's why we found you and saved you.
Ruby Sunday.
Don't you ever wonder deep down in both your hearts where your TARDIS was? At Christmas, I was at life, I ceased to exist, and you did everything you could to bring me back because you couldn't bear.
This has to be the most flashbacks I've ever seen in one television serial. Why was it deemed necessary to show a flashback of Poppy when Belinda mentions her?
I have a child. Her name is Poppy.
Do you genuinely think that viewers will forget that she exists the minute she goes off screen? Look, I know that people forgetting about Poppy is a major plot point of the episode, but that doesn't mean it's gonna happen to us. And the way this episode treats its characters is appalling. This might be the last time we ever see Ruby Sunday, and we know it's the last time this incarnation will see her, and she has no kind of proper goodbye. Her last interaction with the Doctor is him slamming a door in her face. Of course, the Ronnie is completely wasted. Omega, I don't even want to get into. Anita was just there to hold a door open the whole episode.
Hold the door!
But the character who was shortchanged the most by far is Belinda, who's resigned to spend a major chunk of the episode, which is supposed to be the finale to her story arc, hiding in a box. Why is she getting shoved into a cube-shaped prison to wait out the story, while Ruby, a companion who's already had her time, shows up to actually do stuff in her place? And what exactly is Belinda's arc across the season? The first time we saw her in the Robot Revolution, she put the Doctor in his place, leading people to think she'd be a companion that actually challenges him.
She trusted you, and she died. You tested my DNA without even asking my permission. I am not one of your adventures.
But then she never acted like this again. After that, she became a generic cookie-cutter companion, and ultimately, she's just there to be forced into motherhood. Wow. What a compelling character. In interviews, they talk about Belinda as if she's consistently characterized the same way she was in this single scene. And honestly, I don't even blame them, because this single scene is some of the only characterization Belinda ever gets.
She doesn't want to be the sidekick to some guy who's just turned up. This bit I like. Okay, that looks good.
She's not charmed by him, she's not wowed by him, she's not overly impressed by him.
You're wonderful.
After the robot revolution, even the fact that she's a nurse rarely ever comes up. I thought it would be an interesting dynamic, you know, the doctor and the nurse, but they didn't do much with it.
Interesting that it's a doctor-nurse.
It is really cool, it's a doctor and a nurse. I don't know how it applies to, other than it being funny to say, like, oh, it's cool that it's a doctor and a nurse.
As I'm sure many of you know, it is widely speculated that Millie Gibson was originally supposed to stay on for this season as well, but due to some kind of alleged behind-the-scenes drama last season, she exited early and had to be replaced. Those with a good memory will recall that this is not the first time something like this has happened while Russell was in charge of Doctor Who. And I mean, I can see it. Part of what's so confusing about Belinda's daughter being Poppy is that Belinda never met Poppy before this, but Ruby did. Not only that, but after forming a connection with Poppy, the Doctor says this.
I'm sorry, Poppy, I'm so sorry, but we are not your mummy and daddy. I wish we were, but we're not.
Do you hear what he said there? I wish we were, wish world. And Ruby was established to live in a house of foster children. She's already accustomed to raising children that aren't hers by blood. All the setup was there for it to be Ruby and the Doctor who raise Poppy, and yet that's not what happens. Plus, it's Ruby who has history with one of the main villains, Conrad, not Belinda, meaning she's the one that actively takes him down in the climax, while Belinda does nothing. It just fits a lot better for Ruby to have been the primary companion in this episode and season in general. It struck me a few times throughout the season that Belinda is written as if she's known the Doctor for a lot longer than a couple of days.
That's not him.
And that might be because these scripts were originally written for Ruby. Alas, this is all just speculative on my part, but what isn't speculative is the fact that Ncuti Gatwa is officially out after only 2 seasons in the role. 2 shortened seasons, I may add. That's only 18 episodes, but 3 of them he's barely in because Ncuti had other commitments, so really it's more like 15. For comparison, that's barely longer than Christopher Eccleston's tenure of 13 episodes.
You know what's going to happen when you get cast. You're like, I'm going to have to hand this baton over one time. It's all going to come to an end soon.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I've been in constant preparation for that.
But just to throw a wrench into matters, reportedly during a Graham Norton interview earlier that year, he stated he was planning on shooting a 3rd season, but that part of the interview was edited out. Fast forward to now, and he says he left the role because he found it too physically tiring.
My body is tired. You've tired me. I'm old now and I'm ready.
Yeah.
Ready to settle down. I would love to have the energy and the youth to be able to do this full time for the rest of my life, but my knees are telling me it's time.
Too tired, you say? I swear I've heard that somewhere before.
It was always the plan to do this amount of seasons.
It was kind of the plan always from the beginning.
So, what happened here? Well, to answer this, we're going to have to delve into the realm of leaks. One leaker in particular, Andrew, who has accurately predicted a shocking amount of this season's content, said he decided to jump ship and move on once it became clear that Disney wasn't going to renew anytime soon. And he didn't want to stay tied to Doctor Who when production on season 3, if it does happen, is still some way off. Remember those reshoots we talked about? They were commissioned after Ncuti decided to leave. This story was not supposed to be his last. It was revealed by another leaker, Daniel Richman, and later confirmed by Poppy's real-life mom on social media that the episode originally had a completely different ending. A single photo of this alternative ending also seems to have leaked via Disney Plus Germany, proving its existence. According to Daniel, the original ending of Doctor Who Season 2, before the reshoots, was that the Doctor, Ruby, Belinda, and etc. are all having a big party. Think Amy and Rory's wedding. Everyone's dancing, the Vlinx is a DJ, Susan is seen watching over them from afar, which would have been the cliffhanger leading into season 3. He went on to elaborate, Susan would have appeared overlooking the party that the Doctor and company are at. She would have been standing with Poppy. Susan says, "Let's go, Mum," and then we cut to the credits. Now, if this is to be believed, Poppy was originally supposed to be not only the Doctor's daughter, but Susan's mother, which would have been a completely lore-destroying retcon, but then again, the lore of the classic series has pretty much already been destroyed and its charred remains already danced on. And there were a few lines throughout these seasons that seemed to imply that the Doctor hadn't had a daughter yet.
If you've got a granddaughter, that means you've got kids.
Well, not yet.
You can have a granddaughter before a daughter?
Life of a Time Lord.
Even though this completely contradicts the many times the Doctor talked about being a parent in the past.
Donna, I've been a father before.
What?
When I look at her now, I can see them. The hole they left, all the pain that filled it. You are still a father. dad to dad. You never let them down.
This is Russell we're talking about. I don't think that would have stopped him. Again, it doesn't matter how absurd the show is or how bullshit the science is, you still need to maintain an illusion of logic. If you just start randomly contradicting some of the most important aspects of the main character's history, then it's hard to care about the main character's journey. Oh, wait a second, Saltline Toymaker. I almost forgot. That makes it fun. Am I happy that this twist didn't come to pass? I suppose so, but all the setup for Poppy being the Doctor's daughter is still there. Now it's just a dead end because Russell changed the ending of the story at the last minute. Not to mention the fact that this would have been the second season finale in a row to end with a mysterious old woman standing on top of a building saying something ominous. And how long does he plan to dangle Susan in front of everyone's face before he actually commits to doing something with her? Carol Ann Ford is 85 years old. I don't want to sound pessimistic here, but if you're planning to use her for something, your window of opportunity won't be open forever. Look, I have wanted Susan to return to Doctor Who for as long as I can remember. She was the very first companion, she's the Doctor's granddaughter, and most importantly, he said he would come back for her.
One day, I shall come back. Yes, I shall come back. Until then, there must be no regrets, no tears, no anxieties. Just go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine.
But we're still waiting for that to happen 60 years on. And she has every reason in the world to be pissed at him because he just kind of randomly dumped her on Earth with a human with nowhere near her lifespan. Do you remember how the specials teased the one who waits?
There's only one player I didn't dare face, the one who waits.
Who's that?
Originally, when Series 14 was airing, I thought Susan would be revealed as the one who waits, you know, in reference to the fact that she's been waiting for him. I assume that he's going to bring back Susan in some capacity later in the season. Could Susan be Miss Flood? Could Susan be the one who waits? I mean, the Doctor did say that one day he'd come back, and then he never came back. That's like the one thing I've wanted to see Doctor Who do more than anything else for years, bring back Susan and have her be pissed at him for never coming back. But nah, it was Sutek. Honestly, I still think my theory would have been better. There is so much storytelling potential there, but instead of committing to doing something with her, Russell has instead opted to dangle the possibility of her return in front of the audience like a candy that's always just out of reach. She's being used as a content generator, and it's frustrating, man. Leaker Andrew also claims that Billie Piper's inclusion in the episode was even more last minute. Apparently, the episode was originally going to end with an ambiguous, open-ended regeneration, where you didn't actually see who Ncuti changed into, but then Russell changed his mind after the season premiere had already aired, and Billie Piper's face was stitched onto the scene as quickly as possible. I mean, you can see that her head was just badly edited onto Ncuti's body. And on the magazine cover, they forgot to change the color of Ncuti's left arm. I mean, the jokes are kind of writing themselves here. At this point, I just feel bad for Ncuti. His run as the Doctor is sandwiched between David Tennant and Billie Piper. This show cannot let go of 2006. Doctor Who has adorned itself with so much fan service and nostalgia baiting that it has collapsed in on itself. Now the nostalgia baiting is the show. I don't think I've ever seen a show so obsessed with its own past while simultaneously being too scared to try anything new. Well, I guess they tried one new thing. They made another spin-off.
Under the sea. Under the sea.
So The War Between the Land and the Sea was created by Russell T Davies and helmed by Pete McTighe. Pete is the guy that Russell wants to be showrunner after he's gone, and this is clearly meant to be a show-running test run for him. Like Torchwood, this is meant to be a gritty, adult spin-off of Doctor Who, with morally gray characters and heavy subject matter. It's a lot less edgy than Torchwood, though.
Travel halfway across the universe for the greatest sex. You still end up dying alone.
The plot is that there's a war between the land and the sea devils. The sea devils are, believe it or not, baddies from the original run of Doctor Who. I think Doctor Who is just past creating new villains at this point. The meta is bringing back old villains and then completely changing them to the point that they might as well just be new anyways. Because the Sea Devils have gotten a redesign, making a lot of them look a lot more human. I'm not really a fan of this redesign. I like it when other species look like other species and not just humans in makeup. And they ain't even called Sea Devils anymore. That's because it's 2026 and that term is no longer acceptable. Now we say Homo Aqua because this guy said so.
We're better than that now.
Let's say, Homo Aqua.
By the way, this guy's fake American accent is really bad, and it's funny.
In the words of a great man, we can be heroes.
The most common tell of a bad American accent is adding an ER onto the end of a word that ends with an A, like stamina.
Monitor our stamina.
He was still one of the best characters, though. Rest in peace, King. One day, the Homo Aqua suddenly rise from the oceans, making their existence known to humanity, and they ain't happy about pollution.
My children should have been born at the turn of the third cold current, but they choked on your oil and poison.
Thus, they declare war. These fake-ass social media messages are frying me. It's people from the sea? Wait, what? The Thames is full of sea creatures. Has someone called the cops about this? Kill the fish! Angry emoji! Fish emoji! Hashtag Homo Aqua. This is actually 100% accurate. This is how people on the internet talk. The show stars Russell Tovey, who you may remember as Alonzo, but now he's playing a man called Barclay Pierre DuPont, who's just a regular average Joe. That is until one day a clerical error accidentally lands him in a position of actual power at UNIT, and right when all this is happening, the Homo Aqua show up for revenge. Because Barclay is the only person there who shows them a small amount of respect, they designate him humanity's representative and say they will only converse with him.
We would speak with him.
Me? Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
Honestly, it's not a bad hook for a show. To give credit where it's due, the negotiation scenes between the Homo Aqua and humanity are genuinely interesting.
An operation of this scale will stretch our resources to their limits. We regret we cannot guarantee a significant reduction of ocean pollution in a shorter time frame.
The Sea Devils insist that if humanity wanted to, they could stop polluting the oceans immediately, whilst the human delegates, of course, insist that this is not possible.
You will advance the plans to change your world within 5 years.
That's impossible.
Make it possible.
Both of them are correct so far as their respective viewpoint is concerned. Theoretically, yes, humanity could just stop polluting the oceans pretty much overnight, if we ceased pretty much all of our modern industrial activity. But then millions of people would be thrust into poverty or starve, and the global economy would completely collapse. That's why it's not something that could be done practically without a long period of completely restructuring the world's industries and economies. But from the perspective of a sentient fish person, the human global economy is a made-up thing that doesn't matter, and why should they care if it collapses? They're already dying because of us, so why should they care if some of us have to die for them?
You are condemning developing countries to death.
This is an interesting conflict. Both sides have legitimate reasons to feel the way they do. Because of this, the war between the land and the sea is more of what you would call a tragic narrative. As opposed to a story with clear-cut good guys and bad guys like most Doctor Who media, here we see a conflict between two factions which could have been avoided if things had gone differently. So if it wasn't clear, I actually think the core conflict within the show is quite good. Well, on paper at least, because unfortunately, the show never really develops this conflict. It stays in the same static place throughout the whole show until the last 20 minutes. Stop polluting within a year. But we can't do that. Stop. But we can't. Stop. But we can't! Stop! The Homo Aqua mount a series of deadly attacks upon coastal cities which, realistically, would have resulted in the deaths of tens or even hundreds of millions of people worldwide.
All across Manhattan, the sky is raining plastic.
Can you hear me?
But the ramifications of this are never explored.
114 years after she began her maiden voyage, the Titanic has finally reached her destination.
That's such a cavalier way to report on something that might have crushed like hundreds of people. Something like this could cause society to descend into anarchy, especially with the threat of more attacks to come. Millions of people who lost loved ones should be out in the street demanding vengeance or even trying to take matters into their own hands, but they're nowhere to be seen. Even Barclay seems remarkably not pissed considering that his daughter came within an inch of dying. We also see the Homo Aqua kill and eat a bunch of dogs. but it feels like it's just played as a joke.
You ate our dogs!
You eat our fish.
Well, you can't eat our dogs.
You can't eat our fish.
This new era really has it out for animals, man.
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in.
So personally, my main issue with this show is the fact that the Homo Aqua just don't feel real. Like, they don't feel like a believable civilization to me, they just feel like a bunch of walking plot points. And to be fair, I partially understand why. The Sea Devils have only ever been characterized as evil monsters in the past.
You want to create chaos until the whole Earth is flooded.
We're reclaiming what was ours. Our Earth will be gloriously aqua once more.
In this show, it's clear they're trying to walk a fine line between fleshing them out and making their situation sympathetic, but also not making them act completely dissimilarly to how we remember them. But because it's trying to compromise between these two things, I don't think it really succeeds at either, which is part of why I don't think it should have been the Sea Devils at all. They should have just invented a new underwater civilization, which it seems like they wanted to do anyways. If the writers hadn't felt tied down by the necessity to make the Sea Devils act at least slightly the way we remember them, maybe they would have felt more confident fleshing them out, because, as is, they are not fleshed out in the slightest. One thing that baffles me about this show is that we never get to see a scene in which two Homo Aqua converse with each other, ever. At any point. We only ever see them through the eyes of Barclay or Unit, and they only ever speak in super long diatribes, and those diatribes are always about the same thing: we hate humanity for polluting. If there was a Bechdel test for fish people, this show would fail. It would be nice if there was a little bit of world building that clued us into what life is like for them under the ocean. How is their society structured? How do they differ from us? We barely see their home world, and what little we do see of them is just a bunch of platforms that they can stand on. This is kind of just a pet peeve of mine with fantasy, where it's clear a set piece was created with only spectacle in mind and not practicality. It looks cool, but like, what do they do down here all day exactly? Just like stand on these platforms and stare at each other? Maybe they have concerts here, I don't know. The show clearly wants us to feel bad for Aquakind, but it's a lot more difficult when we don't get to see things from their perspective, and all we do see them do is commit terrorist attacks against massive population centers and eat dogs. Oh, and also basically nothing they do throughout the show makes any sense. I'm not super clear on why they never even attempted to make contact with humanity before this point. Some of them were apparently in hibernation, but obviously not all of them. And as it's clearly established, they have technology far ahead of our own and are fully capable of clearing pollution out of the ocean themselves.
We are cleaning up your mess.
Barclay, what's happening?
They're cleaning up the ocean, the plastic, the pollution, all of it. They're giving it back.
So why don't they do that? Why do they even need us? Something about this plot smells a little fishy to me. Unfortunately, every single Homo Aqua we meet throughout this show, with the exception of one we'll get back to, is about as nuanced as the evil Sea Devils of days past. And on that note, let's talk about the characters. Kate Lethbridge-Stewart makes a return, and she's honestly the highlight of the show. We see how the pressure of her job can really get to her, especially when the doctor isn't around to help out, and how her response to this is to just bottle everything up inside in an unhealthy way. Also, she blackmails her therapist into overprescribing her meds.
I will have to sign you off.
What for?
You're clearly unfit. With the greatest sympathy, I can't risk you going back to work. I have to report this to your superior.
Your daughter is not your husband's.
I beg your pardon?
Your marriage survived. Your secret is safe. Until now.
I didn't add that sound effect, I swear. Not only does she get progressively more sleep deprived as the episodes go on, but her boyfriend is killed in a botched assassination attempt on her. After this, she starts acting really unhinged. At one point, Kate almost attacks the British military because they won't do what she wants.
I can't let you do this. Unit troops target soldiers. North access, grid 49.
What?
How does Unit have that much autonomy? This is terrifying. Honestly, Conrad was kind of right. What if someone corrupt ends up in charge of Unit? These people need to be stopped. Of course, the main focus of the show is the relationship between Barclay and Salt, the lead representative of the Homo Aqua. You see, this show, for some reason, is a human-on-fish love story. And no, they don't have any chemistry. If you were wondering why they redesigned some of the Sea Devils to look basically human, this is why. That being said, I would have preferred the show if Barkley had fallen in love with one of the OG Sea Devils. That would have really done it for me. Plus, you get a guaranteed furry audience. The two fall in love over the span of a couple brief encounters, most of which are actively antagonistic.
You will drink. E. coli is guaranteed. Dysentery, meningitis, and Legionnaire's disease.
Barkley, do not drink the water.
Then they have one conversation where they kind of slightly open up to each other, almost.
We could make a difference, you and I. End the conflict between our species.
And that's it. They're now in love.
Can I touch you?
In the very next scene, Salt sacrifices her status in society to save Barkley's life, even though it means she'll become a pariah. Or should I say, a piranha. She went from being the lead representative of her species to throwing it all away for this guy in the span of like 2 days. What does Barkley have going for him that could genuinely justify being this down bad? Unless he still has whatever Alonzo had going for him, in which case I totally get it. Then Salt gets captured, and so Barkley becomes a criminal to save her.
Just look around. There's no way you're going to get through us.
Like you're gonna shoot me.
That was quite the cage they had her locked in. It just miraculously opens itself the second it touches the water. And just like that, they're both fugitives, which means they're now free to have sweet human-on-fish sex.
I just wanna catch my fish, drive my truck, drink my beer.
Someone give this an Oscar for Best Picture right now. Okay, so the reason this whole star-crossed lovers thing really doesn't work for me, apart from the fact that they only had one private conversation before falling in love, is that it's not properly established they even have anything in common. Afterwards, they kind of try to set up the idea that Salt never really fit in with her species the way Barkley's never really fit in. But it would have been nice if you had established that, ahead of time, so that it had time to grow naturally. It's really difficult to justify the level of devotion Barkley feels for Salt after knowing her for, less than 3 days.
I'll find you! You would never swim alone!
Let me tell you, I was cracking up when I watched this for the first time. Gosh, I love you so much, Salt. We have so many great memories together. Like that time a few days ago when you came really close to killing my daughter with a falling anchor and that terrorist attack you and your people unleashed upon my planet.
We are cleaning up your mess.
Don't worry, I'll never mention that again. But this romance seemingly meets a tragic end when a secret plot by some corrupt generals and politicians is revealed. You see, they've devised a ghastly technology called severance, which allows workers to split their consciousness into a work self and a home self. No, I'm sorry, wishful thinking. They've devised an evil bioweapon called severance that is capable of wiping out the Homo Aqua almost entirely, and they use Barkley as patient zero. After he's unknowingly infected with the virus, he meets Salt, and when she returns to the ocean, the virus is unleashed upon her people. This results in the death of almost all Aqua kind overnight.
The war is over. You have won. We are destroyed.
Have you ever considered that maybe humans are the real monsters? Why don't you think about that while listening to a slow, sad rendition of a David Bowie song?
We can be heroes. Just for one day.
But not all is lost. Salt miraculously survived the attack. Now, thematically, I think it's interesting that it was because of Barkley's love affair with Salt that her species was wiped out. What was supposed to be the most beautiful thing in the show ends up becoming the most destructive. But even more interesting than that is the fact that Barkley never actually realizes it was his fault.
The virus, how did it happen?
Nothing. We have suspicions, but we can't prove anything.
I thought at the very least it would mean the end for their relationship, but no, neither of them ever know. Despite all the carnage, the series still tries to end on a happy note. I mean, listen, I get it. She's quite a catch. And then Barkley randomly turns into a fucking fish. I thought I missed something explaining why and how this happens the first time I watched it, but apparently no one online knows either. All we know is that it happened because of something called the Accord. What the hell is that? Beats me. The show just establishes it like we're supposed to know what that means and never explains it. Maybe it had something to do with the time that she saved him and brought him from the bottom of the ocean up to the surface and he somehow didn't get the bends. Maybe that was a clue. Maybe when they had sex, her DNA merged with his. I don't know. Let's just focus on what's important, which is that Barkley can now breathe underwater, which means that he is now free to abandon his daughter for unlimited fish sex. Seems a bit shellfish to me. I'm really sorry. Then Kate pulls a gun on some random jogger for littering.
Pick it up. I said, pick it up. Pick it up!
And that's how the show ends.
Pick it up!
I was really hoping that Kate's arc was leading to something big. Rookie mistake at this point, I know, but I really liked what they had going with her. As the show went on, you could see cracks forming in her demeanor. She started acting more unpredictably as the pressure of her job and the sacrifices she made for it progressively wore her down. Yet all it really culminates in is this moment here where she acts a little crazy in like a funny way. I thought that something drastic was gonna happen, but all it led to was that she became like one of those white girls on TikTok that says she has crackhead energy.
Stacy is such a crackhead. Me want avocado. Stacy.
I feel like Kate's breakdown could have played into the plot in a way that was a lot more meaningful. Also, reportedly, the original ending was going to have Barkley be the one pointing a gun at a litterer instead of Kate, because Salt would have also been gone at the end of the story, leaving Barkley all alone. But apparently Pete McTighe decided that was too sad, so at the last minute he stitched on the accord thing so that they could be together forever. Yeah, that tracks. Just about everything in this miniseries ends up feeling two-dimensional. Even humanity. Basically, the show presents two types of people. There's the good humans, which is most of us, and then there's the bad humans who sit around a table of food, scheming ways to commit all the world's evil doing.
Oh, you had no recession.
Every attack on Aquakind comes from these bad people because it's part of their 4D chess plan.
I swear I didn't.
No, not you. But there are others.
But instead of having a shadowy evil cabal be responsible for all the bad things humans did, what if everyday humans were responsible for the bad things humans did? I would have really liked it if the show had explored how fear could motivate everyday people to lash out against the fish invaders, especially after they struck first, but the show doesn't really want to go there. The closest we get to the show exploring that theme is people saying mean stuff about the fish.
She's sushi, mate.
It's kind of offensive, mate.
I just don't find this interesting social commentary. Again, the show clearly wants to be Torchwood Children of Earth, but part of what made that season so effective is how it examined the ugliness within us all. Take a character like John Frobisher. He's a man who does terrible things, not because he's a two-dimensional terrible guy, but because he thinks he has no other choice. He thinks he's doing them for the greater good. He's also played by Peter Capaldi, so that helps. He's ultimately put in a position where he thinks he has to take the lives of his own family, and he does. Children of Earth is actually pretty fucked up. Our main protagonist, Captain Jack, is also revealed to have done some very questionable things in the past for what he believed was the greater good. Then he ends up having to sacrifice somebody very important to him to save the day. In Children of Earth, the characters have to make devastating sacrifices. Here, they don't, because the only big sacrifice in the plot is made by the bad guys without anybody else's knowledge. You want to tell a compelling adult story? Why not put Barkley into a position where he has to choose between rescuing his family or rescuing Salt? Really test where his loyalties lie. Want to go darker than that? Why not have Kate be one of the people behind Severance? I mean, I feel like all the setup for Kate cracking was there. Pete has clearly been setting up Kate as an anti-hero in everything he's written of her. She clearly wasn't in a good state of mind throughout this show, and hearing the Homo Aqua threaten to wipe out human civilization might have pushed her over the edge. Granted, that would kick off more of a villain arc, and I can see how some people who like Kate might not be a huge fan of her committing genocide, so I'm not saying it had to have gone that way, but I think at least some people at UNIT who we previously thought of as good guys should have been in on the attack. If you want to explore the ugliness of humanity, it would hit a lot harder if one of the protagonists that we've been following was responsible for doing this horrible thing. I mean, beyond exploring the dark side of human nature, it also would have explored the dark side of UNIT. But again, the show doesn't want to show UNIT in a negative light light ever. Unit is always good. The bad guys are the ones who do bad stuff. And plus the bad guys will get what's coming to them in the goofiest way possible. Genuinely, the show ends on the implication that the bad guys will all, like, get drowned or something. We don't have to take action against the billionaires and corrupt politicians, don't worry. Their souls are implicated and water will have its revenge. On that note, if I'm being honest, I really don't think this show is as anti-capitalist as a lot of people say it is. Sure, it places blame at the feet of politicians and CEOs who are responsible for destroying the environment, and a lot of what Barkley says sounds like meaningful critique.
Still, every day, water companies are pumping poison and sewage into our rivers and oceans, all the while dishing out bonuses to their bosses. And the thing is, we are letting them get away with it.
But when you peer under the hood, it doesn't really advocate for any meaningful systemic change. Instead, the show presents us with a small cabal of bad apples who are themselves the problem. They don't represent all elites, just a small circle of bad ones. So we don't have to change the whole system, just get rid of these evil lizard people. Additionally, the show goes out of its way to place blame upon the everyday person for what's transpired. Right after condemning the water companies, Barkley says,
We just sat at home flicking through our phones, making tea, thinking it's someone else's problem. But it's not. This is my fault. We all played our part.
This idea that we're all equally guilty is further reinforced by choosing to end the show with Kate pointing a gun at a litterer. This is the final image a viewer is left with, one that clearly points the finger of blame at the common man. Or I guess I should say, points the gun of blame. The message is clear, it's not only the rich and powerful that are responsible, it's everyone. If you've ever littered, you're part of the problem. Now, I don't think that's completely wrong. I certainly don't want to disagree with the notion that the individual has some responsibility to the environment. People shouldn't litter, and they also shouldn't vote for corrupt politicians being lobbied by big companies to weaken environmental regulations. For sure. But the sad truth is that as a single person, even if you commit your life to the cause, as many have, vote responsibly, only buy green, try to educate your friends, march in the streets, throw soup at paintings, whatever angle you pick, there's only so much a single person can do. If governments and large corporations won't play along, you're fighting a losing battle. I'm sorry to say it, but it is true. It doesn't matter what your carbon footprint is compared to that of the largest oil companies. In fact, the phrase carbon footprint was coined by large oil companies to place blame upon the everyday person for climate change when they know they're the ones who are responsible. So again, I know what the show is trying to say, but I really think it should have advocated for more meaningful change within society if it wanted its message to hit harder. And it's clear they wanted the message to resonate. I can tell that many of the impromptu speeches in the show were written specifically to be clipped and posted on social media. The way the characters are talking sometimes will suddenly get really generic, and they'll deliver some really broad speech about how, like, corruption is bad or pollution needs to be stopped.
The economy will collapse within 6 months. You'll be voted out. The next lot will storm into power, and on and on and on it goes. But I will still be here.
Now we have to help fix it. And the thing is, our kids know this. Our kids, they're way ahead of us. Why aren't we listening?
I've actually seen clips of the show pop up on random sites, so Russell got his wish. This era is generating content. That's pretty much everything I have to say, except for the fact that this show has no idea how day to night filters work. Like, this shot is supposed to be at nighttime. Not only are the colors completely wrong, not only is that clearly a daytime sky, but I can see the shadows being cast by the sun. I can see them, they're right there, you ain't fooling me. Don't worry, they make up for it with this shot. That's an awesome shot right there, let's see it again. Fucking A. Wait a second, the 14th Doctor was on Earth throughout this entire show. What was he doing this whole time? So if it wasn't obvious, whether it be the main show or its edgy adult fish spin-off, I don't think the Bad Wolf era has served this franchise very well. It had glimmers of goodness, greatness even, fragments of the show at its full potential, but ultimately, it face plants well before the finish line. It feels like it's trying to be hip and cool with modern lingo and clippable moments for social media at every turn, but at its core, it's stuck in the past. It seems to think now, of all times, is a good time to start copying the MCU, 5 years after everybody and their grandma got sick of the MCU. It's trying to be the type of show that was popular before streaming took over and the age of binging began. It copies the framework of 2005 Who with its mystery box storytelling, but doesn't build on it in any way. In Series 1, the text "Bad Wolf" kept appearing everywhere, so in this season, we'll have random phrases of significance show up in wacky places too. Look, in the Interstellar Song Contest, it says Omega on the confetti cannon. Why? Because Omega's in the finale. Look, the name of the corporation is Poppy Honey, because Poppy's in the finale. Wait, why would you want to liken Poppy to a genocidal corporation that's also maybe a stand-in for Israel?
Poppy is real!
The show just also isn't particularly satisfying to binge. The characters are inconsistent from episode to episode depending on who's penning the script. Moffat's 15th Doctor is noticeably darker and more Capaldi-like than in episodes penned by Davies. He's introduced as the healed, stoic version of the Doctor, and then ends up demonstrably being the opposite of that. Russell goes out of his way to explicitly characterize the 15th Doctor in his first scenes as somebody who has the ability to control his negative emotions, unlike the 14th Doctor.
How many died down there? You can't save everyone.
So, what happened exactly? And this doesn't come across like some kind of intentional devolution either. It just comes off as inconsistent. He tells the 14th Doctor that his barren TARDIS is a manifestation of his own emptiness. He tells them that he needs to get a chair because it's important for him to take a moment to breathe.
One thing you need in this place is a chair. I'll be alright.
No. You're thin as a pin, love.
Been running on fumes.
But then the 15th Doctor never adds a chair to his TARDIS throughout his entire 2-season run. He never makes that TARDIS his own in any way, as the 12th Doctor did with 11's TARDIS. It remains empty. Apart from a jukebox to blare music over everything and bright white lights to wash everything out. Kind of an apt metaphor for the show right now, actually. It doesn't help that Russell, by admission, intentionally wrote him to be passive, whereas previous Doctors were always authoritative.
Historically, the Doctor owns the room wherever he is, whether by subversion, or character, or charisma, or style, or genuine authority and power. So it'd be a very great shame to change that for Shooty's Doctor. So it's there. I never want it to be dominant.
Apparently, he did this to challenge typical gender roles by showing a male lead who's vulnerable and isn't always in control. I am all for challenging gender roles. The 13th Doctor, for all her faults, was at times a good example of a character who defied gender roles. This Doctor, on the other hand, ends up feeling like he isn't the driver of his own stories half the time, and for a character like the Doctor, that's not ideal. You can tell the general public didn't connect with him the way they did with previous incarnations largely because of this, and the constant crying just feels fake, especially since he'll be peppy again 5 seconds later. These end up feeling like crocodile tears, as if he's putting on an act. And you know what? That could be an interesting idea to explore. What if the Doctor fakes his emotions to blend in with those around him, or perhaps even to trick himself into feeling something after a long lifespan has made him numb? There are a lot of ways you could explore this and how it factors into the characterization of a 2,000-year-old alien, but the show never really does. And that's a crying shame, especially since Ncuti Gatwa is a great charismatic actor. He nails any scene in which the Doctor takes control of his surroundings, but since Russell intentionally didn't write many of those for him, he has little to work with. Conversely, I do think he struggles with the emotional breakdown scenes, not because he's incapable of them, but because he was likely given poor direction. It's clear he was told to be as expressive as possible, which works sometimes, but during scenes when he's supposed to be sad or frightened, he ends up overacting to the point of borderline parody. I still genuinely believe he was good casting, and he could have been a fantastic Doctor with better direction, and he was robbed of that, which sucks. Russell has said he wanted to make this era as happy-go-lucky as possible to counter all the scary things going on in the world right now, which I understand, but ironically I think the show in its past was a better example of happy escapist entertainment that still wasn't scared to tackle issues head-on. Here, even though it's juggling some big issues, the show feels to some extent like it's been defanged. You can't artificially force everything to be happy all the time, or else it just won't feel real. And it doesn't matter how high stakes the story is. The whole universe could be at threat, but if there are never any lingering consequences for our protagonists, and if there's always a no strings attached happy ending where everything bad gets undone, then viewers are going to start to realize there are no stakes. Ironically, Russell said it himself here.
You cannot have a threat to the Earth that is this big on primetime BBC One without there being consequences. I'm gutted when I watched that episode and horrified, and it's so sad. Drama's just not there to make you smile and go, isn't everyone happy and all the people I like have survived? That's just rubbish. The good drama actually does rip your guts out and does make you bleed and make you remember Yanto forever.
Look, I know people call Doctor Who a kid's show a lot, as did I throughout this video, to piss people off, and as much as that's what people say, nowadays it isn't really statistically true. The simple fact of the matter is that kids aren't really watching anymore, at least not in the same numbers they used to. As a consequence of not picking up new viewers at the same rate it once did, the show's fan base has aged, and in my opinion, the show needs to grow up with them. Look, Doctor Who has been a huge part of my life since childhood. It has inspired me in countless ways. The first YouTube video I ever made was some weird scuffed edit of the Third Doctor's intro back when I was like 9. The first video essay I ever made was about the show. It's not a particularly great video, one could even say it's bad, but it was my first ever viral video, and I probably wouldn't still be making videos today if the almighty algorithm hadn't decided to lift that one up. At this point, I started viewing my Doctor Who videos as a benchmark for the progression of my channel. The first one I made makes me cringe looking back at it, but it was still an important stepping stone. The next one is, by all accounts, better, but I was still getting the hang of the whole video making thing. There are some blatant errors in that video, like when I said Peter Davison didn't have a TV acting career before becoming the Doctor. Still haunts me. The third one is the longest and most time-consuming video I've ever made, and I am genuinely proud of it. But obviously, I'm not the only person making videos about Doctor Who out there. There are others. The Doctor Who fanbase is huge. My last video made my overall thoughts on the franchise pretty clear. This time around, I want to hear what others have to say. So, I fired off a few emails.
Hello.
Hello. Hello, Verdana.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey, Verdana, how you doing?
Yes, I've brought together some of the most prolific faces of the online Doctor Who community, specifically content creators, in order to ask them a few questions about the state the show is currently in, starting with, what did you think of this most recent era?
On an episode-to-episode level, I enjoyed it more than the Chibnall stuff. Like, from week to week, I enjoyed it more than that, but holistically, none of it came together. Does that make sense?
The recent seasons, they have their moments of greatness. They have their moments of not so greatness. And unfortunately, I do feel like it's probably, how do I say this without getting fired? Everyone really knows this, it didn't go as well as it could have.
So I don't want to sound overly dramatic here. I really want to put like all the weight on the word disappointing. I'm not saying this is the worst thing that's ever happened, but this might be one of the most disappointing things I've ever seen.
Overall feeling at this point is cut short. And I know they are still very squirrely about admitting to the fact that he left sooner than they had wanted him to, but you can feel that by the end of the second season. It is tangible.
Pretty much everybody agreed that there were glimmers of potential in this era.
Wild Blue Yonder, I think, is phenomenal, and I still really like the giggle. 73 Yards is one of my all-time favorite episodes of the show, period, full stop.
There's 2 episodes that I think will survive the test of time. 73 Yards and Dot and Bubble. Those are the only 2 which I think there's a reason for these to exist. Everything else is just rehashing stuff that's been done before.
There are episodes which I personally really enjoy, such as The Story in the Engine, which is a divisive one. It felt innovative, it felt unique, it felt cool. Boom, I really enjoyed Boom.
Yeah.
Shooty performed his heart out.
Lux, for me, is the one episode of this entire era where the whole concept of it being like Disney Doctor Who clicks. It's one of the few times they did a concept where I was like, oh, you couldn't do that without the money that you now have.
One idea that came up repeatedly was the notion that this era's attempts at political commentary were quite poorly executed.
What's happened here is basically Conrad, the radical conservative, very clever name there, he decided what kind of life Belinda should have, and the doctor went, shit, you're right. She does seem happier, doesn't she? And then was like, I'm going to go die so that she can breed. And now, there you go.
She'll be a housewife now.
Now she's got 2 absentee fathers in the frame, and I'm sure she's having a great time.
Just be wary of the fact that as much as you are a progressive guy, you're gonna have your blind spots.
Yeah, well, I think the Star Beast is the number one example of him setting out to write a progressive episode, and I can see the attempt, but
Binary. Non-binary. Binary.
The first 20 or so minutes, I think, is done pretty tastefully. And then they go kind of implying that, but she's trans because the meta crisis, and it's like, what? When you're doing social commentary stuff, maybe get some more people to consult on that.
Given that Doctor Who does like to do progressive storytelling, I think a better message they could put out there than Conrad the radical conservative's a big poopy head would be more of a kind of like a you're not alone narrative for people who have been kind of, I guess, ostracized by society or marginalized. But instead, Ruby just wishes Conrad into being a better person.
I wish you to be happy.
Nothing's ever talked about why Conrad felt that way, why Conrad felt the grift was justified, why Conrad felt like being a dick. We previously had the Doctor kicking an allegory for a Palestinian protester, kicking the shit out of him. And now we want to go for the compassionate route when it comes to Conrad, when the Doctor quite happily turned the previous Conrad into sperm.
Really funny when you look at it from an in-universe perspective. This is a guy who will regularly give the master who commits genocide once
a second chance, constantly
chances.
Yeah,
and then there's one incel guy who's clearly not all there, and he's get reduced to jizz.
If you want to have your Dark Doctor moment, I say put it nearer the front of the season, and then you can work back from it or work away from it and stuff like that much easier than if you have it in the second before last Ncuti Gatwa story ever made. And then with that, you can have a story where it's the Doctor kind of reconsiders his mentality towards people like Conrad, maybe because of Ruby. Have a scene where Ruby literally chews the Doctor out and is like, hey, no, we're going to deal with this compassionately.
So the thing that I see that get compared to is what the 10th Doctor did to the Family of Blood.
We wanted to live forever. So the Doctor made sure that we did.
But the thing to remember is that wasn't one of the last things we saw the 10th Doctor do. And more to the point, you get to something like Waters of Mars, and he is confronted very directly with his arrogance and his belief that he has the right to do stuff like that. Mm-hmm. It's distinctly possible that if he'd had a third series, this is something that would have been brought back up and addressed. But ultimately, we have to judge what we actually have, which is that there is no resolution on that. And as a result, because it is cut off and it never has the chance to circle back, it is abysmal. Most of this stuff is the product of inattentiveness and not realizing that was the message that you put in. So I'm not accusing anybody of doing anything on purpose, but there is something at the heart of it that makes a presumption or fails to address a question that leaves it morally rotten.
Of course, a lot of the conversation centered around the big man himself, Russell T Davies, and his decision-making.
Russell T Davies is a man with very, very bad taste who often makes exceptionally good television.
There was a pitch for, get this, a J.K. Rowling Wizard Doctor.
I know that. Yeah, I know that. He wanted it very much so.
He wanted it very much, and Davies is like, no, that would be shit. Had that been now, obviously, J.K. Rowling is, let's just assume J.K. Rowling's a normal person now. That, a concept like that probably would have gone ahead.
Well, I think in his first era, he didn't have absolute creative control over it in the same way, and he was more likely to listen to producers that might have shot ideas down, or even Tenet, who shot down the J.K. Rowling crossover idea. I think it's sort of a George Lucas effect.
And he wasn't delivered like a giant truck filled with money.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need someone to reel you in. And like being surrounded by yes men can be a detriment to anyone, like no matter how talented you are.
In the words of Don and Abel, sometimes I think you need someone to stop you.
Because sometimes I think you need someone to stop you.
I am gonna have to use that clip in the video, and I'll give you credit. I'll play this part to give you credit.
Space babies might be one of the biggest mistakes in the history of Doctor Who. Russell T Davies saying, "Oh my God, we've got all the money in the world. We can make whatever we want. Let's make baby geniuses. That's how I'll introduce a whole new generation to Doctor Who. We'll make baby geniuses."
Yeah.
And it's like, Russell, are you out of your goddamn mind? Why would you start your new era of Doctor Who on baby geniuses? Like, it really, really bothers me. I have a photo you might be able to find on my Twitter, but I have a photo of me that I took of myself watching the episode, and I'm literally just like my mouth is just agape, and I'm just like staring at it like, oh my God, what are they doing? Why are they starting on this? I would never show this to one of my friends. And it's episode 1. How did they not understand that making episode 1 something that you want to show to people you know is important?
Most episodes of this new era, especially the earlier ones, like Church on Ruby Road, Space Babies, Devil's Cord, I would not have been caught dead showing those to my friends that don't watch Doctor Who.
I've talked about this with people before. There was this trend among my friends in the Doctor Who fandom to say that we don't really watch it together as a family at Christmas anymore. Now I have to go into another room and watch Doctor Who myself because otherwise people will just be staring at me like, this is the show that you like, isn't it?
Chris basically quit because Russell was a nightmare and the show was a nightmare to work on. Christopher Eccleston's one of the only people who would just tell you what filming series 1 was like. He'll be like, we did the script reading for 1 episode, and then we weren't allowed to sleep. We stayed up all night because we were driven across the country because we were starting filming on the Dalek episode. We just had to do that over and over again, and we were all exhausted, and it was the show was being run terribly. And I remember when it announced he was coming back, I was like, there's no evidence that he's going to be a less chaotic showrunner to work with.
In terms of Ncuti Gatwa's 15th Doctor, opinions seem to be very split.
I think he was miscast. I personally don't really get much value out of his Doctor. I think he was... just so inconsistent as a character, and at very times very too passive and weak. Didn't quite feel like the lead of the show. And obviously in series 14, he was barely present because he was filming other stuff, so he was very light in stories, and then and then he leaves in the next series, so you never really truly feel like you get to know him very well, or that he establishes much of a character.
When Ncuti's Doctor is written for the most part, it almost feels like any Doctor could have his dialogue. If that makes any sense. Other than obviously when he'll say things like babe and honey and stuff, which is obviously unique to him, the actual meat of most of the dialogue is almost quite generic. It's kind of a similar issue I had with the 13th Doctor as well. They can't seem to make their mind up as whether he's healed from being the 14th Doctor or whether he's still struggling.
That was a big thing for me, yeah.
Yeah, they don't seem to be able to make up their mind of where he is meant to be on this mental health journey. One of the penultimate episodes of season 2 is Interstellar, which obviously, among other things, implies he's very much not in a good headspace.
You have put ice in my heart, so I will cast your body out into the void, and I will stand and watch you freeze to death.
He's supposed to be the mentally healthy Doctor. The rest of them were mentally ill. He's mentally thrilled.
I'm fine because you fix yourself.
But then why is he still going on these bravado speeches about, I am a supernova, honey. I am the last of the Time Lords, babes. I am an extinction level event. Why does he need to do that? If he's mentally healthy, why is he still taught like a Discord mod?
Despite having more money than ever, I heard various complaints about the way the show has looked in recent years, particularly regarding the lighting and blocking.
The current state we have is the complete opposite of what I want to see. Cinematic mega budget, barely like any thought goes into lighting kind of thing.
Since film is no longer physical and everything is digital, and the cameras are a lot better, so you don't have to be as careful with the lighting because you can adjust it all in post. There is just less care put into shots and put into how you assemble the thing. But that's not a Doctor Who problem. That's an everything problem. With those restrictions removed, that level of deliberateness now only exists if you go out of your way to do it.
One of the things I was most curious to know is whether they thought the show was in a better or worse standing today than it had been at the end of the Chibnall era.
Worse. Definitely worse.
I'd be tempted to say roughly the same, but the thing that stands out to me is that we don't have a current Doctor. That immediately is like, now we can't even legally say Billie Piper is the Doctor because they won't say it yet anyway.
Doctor Who has had bad or rocky eras before. That's not a new thing. I think the thing that potentially is worse about this is the final image of Reality War being Billie Piper. It just smacks of a level of desperation that I don't think the Jodie era, for all my issues with it, ever really did.
I think it's in a worse place because of how badly the involvement in Disney went. I don't mean creatively. The business end stuff, I think, has done a lot to damage Doctor Who.
There's a big cloud of uncertainty around the show. And I don't think there's any shame in anyone admitting that, because it just seems to... You can't say that this has been ideally how things could have gone.
From everything we've heard, Chibnall wrote Power of the Doctor with the assumption that that was going to be like the last ever episode of Doctor Who. He didn't know that there was a successor lined up. He didn't know that anything was going to continue. So he kind of wrote that as a way to wrap everything up. And now we're once again in a point where I think Davis is one step out the door already, because just everything's gone wrong and he's probably just like either being subtly pushed out or he's just walking out. And kind of, because it's like they made the statement about the Christmas special being like he's agreed to write a Christmas special. It's like, if he's the current showrunner, you wouldn't really use that kind of term. Like, it should just be like as if he's doing you a favor.
Beyond being lifelong fans, various creators I talk to have direct connections with the franchise. Whether it be Dom, who stars in a Doctor Who fan show, Pup, who is the designer of Doctor Who's best ever villain, the Absorbeloff.
Yeah, that was me. I was 10. I was not thinking critically in the slightest at that point.
Or Theres, who was actually in one of the episodes this season, specifically Wish World. And of course, I couldn't resist asking him about it.
What was it like being on the set of Wish World? And what was it like seeing yourself in an episode? And do you think that might have sort of like colored your thoughts on the era?
I mentioned this a little bit earlier. I definitely think it gives me a fondness for this era that I think is very personal to me. Everyone was just so nice. That's my main takeaway. All the extras that I was with as well were lovely. They all had their own stories as well, which I thought was interesting about their kind of, because obviously it was all disabled actors. They were all actually disabled as well. They didn't get some people to pretend to be, which I appreciated. When I was there, they were towards the end of that block. So I think there was a sense that everyone was a bit knackered. Even still, everyone was very, obviously very happy to be there. Obviously, the scene I filmed, I only knew what I was in essence. So I knew, obviously, Conrad was a bad guy. And I knew that, there was some kind of alternate timeline where this guy who's got, some messed up views has taken over. And if you were to have then told me when I was filming that, oh yeah, this is going to culminate with the Rani, Omega, and, Time Lord stuff, I'd have been like, what? Because thematically for me, if you were just to tell me that with no context, there's not really any connection there. Do you know what I mean? All the interesting stuff in Wish World gets completely abandoned in favor of, lore dumping about stuff that is just not really that well defined or interesting. I will say as well, I've said this before, so I'm not breaking any ground, but when I was with the costume people, they said to me at that time that they wanted to do all three of Shooties. So I could definitely tell you that from their perspective, they were expecting it to be a 3-series gig.
And then there's like rumors of like Ncuti Gatwa and Russell T Davies having a falling out and kind of working out who was actually at fault there, because a lot of people are quick to pass the blame on one of them. I think it's one of those cases where if you give it like 20 years and all the NDAs have run out and stuff, we're going to hear some like crazy stories, I think, about this era and just everything that went weird or wrong about it. Because even like The Well wasn't meant to be like a Midnight sequel. That was like Davis like took over and just kind of shoehorned that in.
I remember when I was watching the Doctor Who DVDs as a kid, and it would be stocked full of the writers and producers and actors being like, this episode blows, and here's why I wasn't happy filming it, and here's why I'm still pissed off that they fired me, and this and that. And then you know, it's weird that the era of DVD and special features came about where you could experience that with old media, and now we're in this weird tight-lit parasocial culture where we may never know what the show was supposed to be, and we're all kind of piecing it together from leaks and then trying to trick some of the actors into confirming what we've pieced together. It's just weird, and it's like, I truly would love to know what the plot to the show was supposed to be, because I think like 80% of the stuff they introduced in this era just doesn't make sense. Like you can't rewatch the show and be like, you see when Ruby it starts snowing and she's using her god powers. That's happening because
it's because she's an orphan. Orphans can do this.
Orphans, that's an orphan power.
I do definitely think the original plan was for like Millie to be in more of it. Like it just doesn't really make sense, because all of the emotional moments of the season 2 finale revolve around her.
Yeah.
They all revolve around her, especially with like obviously even the Poppy aspect of it.
That ties to her, not to...
It ties to not to
yeah, Belinda. Yeah.
I think the production issues are almost so obvious that I'm kind of like, whilst it doesn't give it a free pass for what the final product was, and I will still criticize the final product, I'm kind of like, do you know what I mean? It's a difficult one for me to really be like, oh, this is all your fault, when quite clearly there was other stuff going on as well.
And that leads us to the main question I wanted to ask everybody, which is, as a content creator, how has this new era affected how you make Doctor Who content?
Yeah, so pre-Reality War, it was great. There was like more consistent Who to work with. There was like a lot of stuff to make videos about. But post-Reality War, I'm not even going to do that anymore. Like I said in like my Reality War video, it's like I've got like no faith in the kind of current direction of the show. I'm not enjoying it. I don't want to make videos about like anything after the Reality War. So it's like things like War Between Land and the Sea, I just didn't make any videos about.
Yeah, Doctor Who is kind of not a very... It's not a stable enough thing to stake your content on anymore.
There is a legitimate risk that if I do content about Doctor Who, it will underperform in such a way that it will actually drag down my livelihood. Like, that is a true sentiment. That's been true of Doctor Who since I started, for like a decade, honestly. It's like, if I do a Doctor Who video, it's not going to do well. You know, most of my Doctor Who content is not done well. I think the Doctor Who knockoffs one is the only one that's been even acceptable. I haven't posted as a presenter to my main account in 2 years, so this next video is really important to me. And it's like, I would seriously be jeopardizing the potential of my channel's trajectory by just blindly inserting Doctor Who content in there because it just doesn't have the brand recognition it used to.
The 3 showrunners we've had in the last 21 years, they've all kind of had the same idea of what the show should be.
Yeah, they're very much so cut from the same cloth.
Yeah, they're literally part of just like the same fan clique, basically. I do think we need some fresh blood. It's worse to go for someone that's like Pete Matai, where it's just so mid.
To be honest, I see people say it's better than no Doctor Who. I'd kind of rather it die with dignity than that.
I think New Who, at this point, it needs the ending of the final episode of Survival. It needs the moment where we just do one final story, one last drive for the hell of it. The Doctor does a pretty speech at the end, and it just walks gracefully out into the night. It's been burning through all the goodwill that it had left for the last few years. It needs something pretty beautiful to go out on so that people can feel warm, fuzzy, nostalgic, and hope that it comes back again one day.
Go with what creatively feels right and do something new and original. And I think we're past the point of harkening back to the show's older days. I'm done with the nostalgia and whatnot. Let's just cultivate Doctor Who for the 2020s, 2030s, whatever. Create a new legacy. I hope the next era of the show is just as new as it can be, as fresh as it can be. That's all I hope for.
So, there are a lot of conflicting opinions regarding the current state of the show. Some enjoyed the majority of it, some disliked just about all of it. But pretty much everyone can agree that right now Doctor Who is on the shakiest ground it's been on for a long time. For reference, somehow The War Between the Land and the Sea premiered with higher viewership than Series 15. People were more interested to watch the human-fish love story than the main show, possibly because the advertising went light on the fact that it was a Doctor Who spin-off. I really do feel like as a consequence of this era's failure, the cast was hung out to dry. Millie Gibson was infamously slandered by tabloids when it was announced she was leaving the role. She was accused of being troublesome on set, of being a diva, of being hard to work with, and not one of the show's higher-ups came forward to defend her, quietly allowing this rumor to become the official narrative to many. This still pisses me off, and it may very well have damaged her career. Varada Sethu was done an injustice by the writing, which gave her character one of the worst endings of any Doctor Who companion since, like, Dodo from the 60s, who just vanishes halfway through a story and never reappears because the writers got bored of her. And then there's Ncuti, the man whose one stated wish going into this part, which was to face the Daleks, was never granted. I've already talked about how it's obvious that he planned to stay longer than he did before the show fell apart around him, but I also have to wonder what he actually thinks of the scripts he was given. Allegedly, when asked if he liked the ending of The Reality War at a panel, he said, and I quote, "Belinda ended up a mum, you know? She did. Poppy's really cute, so she's happy. And yeah."
Best season ever!
Then, right before I filmed this part of the video, he went on SNL UK, a show that I didn't even know existed until a few days ago, and said this.
Millions of you watched me as Eric in Sex Education, and then about 12 of you watched me in Doctor Who. Hey, maybe that's why I kept crying. Even though I have since regenerated into Billy Piper, I don't understand it either.
Okay, so yes, it's customary for SNL hosts to poke fun at their own career during an opening monologue, and he may very well have not even written these jokes himself. And this in no way proves that he had some kind of falling out with Russell behind the scenes. But at the same time, he doesn't seem overly thrilled with the way things went. I know I wouldn't be. So where does that leave us going forward? Will there in fact be a hiatus? Unclear. The BBC is currently being very tight-lipped about what's going on. Meanwhile, The War Between the Land and the Sea still hasn't been officially released anywhere outside of the UK, which is insane. It's been half a year. If you want to watch it anywhere else legally, you have to ship in a Blu-ray copy from the UK. If you don't have money to buy a Blu-ray, you're shit out of luck. Apparently, Disney now wants to distance themselves from this IP so much that they don't want a spin-off that they funded on their own streaming platform. The speed at which they flipped on this franchise is frankly embarrassing for the show and horrible PR. Regarding Doctor Who's future, all we know is that there will be a Christmas special this year. Or Easter special, if the rumors of delay are true. It's heavily rumored that it will feature the return of the 14th Doctor, and I'd put my money on an appearance from Susan and the reveal of the boss. But perhaps most importantly, many suspect this Christmas special will be Russell's final episode. Some have theorized that he's planning to step down, others that he wants to stay but he's being pushed out by the BBC. But again, nothing has been confirmed. He might stay on past the special for all we know. It is worth remembering that he's been on record stating he has a 5-season plan for this era, though knowing Russell, the word plan is probably being used pretty loosely. Either way, if the BBC will allow it, I do think he'd like to see it through to completion. It's also worth noting that last year there were rumors floating around that the BBC was in talks with an unknown big streaming platform to give the show a new lease of life, but Russell shot the deal down because the streamer in question would have had too much creative power and he didn't like the mature direction they wanted to take the show in. Now, just to be clear, there's no way of knowing if any of that's true. Leaks are not always reliable. But if it is...
sack Russell T Davies.
Look, I don't doubt that Russell thinks he's the man best suited to save the show, and that he thinks his vision is what the show is supposed to be. But just because he was what the show needed once upon a time, does that mean he's what the show needs today? No. The fact of the matter is that we are in a different age of television from 2005. Back then, ping-ponging between mature episodes and fluffy kid episodes made more sense, because families used to sit down and watch television together. But that's just not really the case anymore, or at least not to the same extent. People who might enjoy an episode like 73 Yards will be turned off by an episode like Space Babies. I just don't think Russell's approach to the show makes sense in the 2020s. And moreover, I'm just gonna put it bluntly, I don't trust the judgment of somebody who would have greenlit the Interstellar Song Contest. I'm sorry, but anybody who looked over that script and said, yup, this is good, this should be shown to children, should not be in charge of the show. Russell, you are an integral part of Doctor Who history. You have forever left your stamp on the franchise. Nobody can take that away from you. But it's time to stand aside and let the show move in a new direction. That also means accepting that you won't necessarily get to handpick the new showrunner. It might be someone you've never met, and that's okay. If you recall my last video, I talked about this line from the Christmas Invasion, in which the Doctor ruins the career of Britain's Prime Minister by saying, "Don't you think she looks tired?" I also talked about how there's a conspiracy theory that it was meant to be a dig at Christopher Eccleston, but that's its own can of worms. In reference to this line, people have been joking that Russell looks tired nonstop for the past year or so. Fun fact, I genuinely considered ending the last video with that exact joke, but thought it would have been too harsh of a note to end on, so I went with a community joke instead. In hindsight, I kind of wish I'd done it. For instance, the T in Russell T Davies apparently doesn't stand for anything, it's just how he styles his name. So I was gonna make a joke by saying, the T stands for tired. But it still didn't feel right. I didn't want to end off on such a negative note, because even though this video may have been largely negative, probably the most negative Doctor Who video I've ever made, Doctor Who has brought a lot of positivity into my life over the years. And really, I just want to see it stop hurting itself like this. The fact of the matter is that right now, Doctor Who feels to me like a show that has run out of things to say. And in many ways, that's kind of the worst thing it could be. But above all else, I want Doctor Who to go see a doctor. Because if it sorts out its issues, I know there's better days ahead. Thank you for watching. Truly, this has been an absolute joy. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. This was another massive project. I'm sorry for making another 3-hour Doctor Who video. I won't do it again, I swear. I'm just hanging out with my dog here, who coincidentally happens to be named Poppy. You're the real Poppy, aren't you guys? And now that the video is technically done, and I'm off script, I can just give my raw, unfiltered thoughts on things. Oh, bye, Poppy. But before that, I've printed out a formal list of all my patrons here, and I'm gonna read it out for you guys. Yes, I printed it out on paper like a boomer. 8 Camp, Alora, Bitter Old Woman, Brig 4, Cohen, David Lynn, Dr. Cabinet, Eerie, Evan the Penguin, Fiddlestinks, Hubris, IDK, I'm a Robot, King Poseidon, Kyle Kramer, MW, Markeef, Melvin, Meteoropic, Milky Marco, Nebulazer, Nikolai, Nodi Pop, Omrafir, Patrick Collins, Pavu Banasweek. I really hope that I read that right. Sorry if I didn't. Ryan Burns, Ryan Ski Rules, Shadowshine 57, Smith, Taran Derbyshire, Ty Farnsworth. You are all beautiful people, and I am more grateful than you could know. What do I honestly think the future of the show holds? Literally as of today, right before filming this, now there's massive speculation in the tabloids that the Christmas special is going to be canceled. And the BBC apparently will not comment on this, which isn't a super good sign. And honestly, whether it's true or not, it's clear just everything behind the scenes in this era has been a total shit show. I think it's clear that when Russell's in charge, things are extremely chaotic. It happened during his first era. Just to repeat myself, no, not every single issue with this era was Russell's fault directly. Specifically, the stuff I was going on about the poor blocking and the visual downgrade I think the show has had, I don't think that's Russell's fault. That just has to do with the current nature of television production. What I'm getting at here is that there doesn't seem to be much indication that Russell has necessarily learned from his mistakes in his first era. You may notice that I went lighter on referencing Russell's first era or referencing the show's past in general in this video as I did in the last one because I didn't want to repeat myself. That video was more sort of about how Doctor Who's stuck in a time loop. For this one, I just wanted to focus on this season, but it is just kind of prophetic that the trajectory of New Who has followed almost exactly that of Classic Who, in that the 60s and the 2000s were the show's big launch and kind of the sudden peak of its popularity. The 70s and 2010s sort of served as a slight decline in popularity, but they're both fan favorite eras in their own regard. But towards the end of both decades, people kind of started getting sick of the show's shtick. And then the 80s and the 2020s are both massively controversial, and in terms of public opinion, were both kind of the show's undoing. And they also both were helmed by very unpopular showrunners who many considered to have stayed for too long. That being said, there is maybe a little bit of hope of potentially a deal with AMC. There's some speculation about that, about a whole new direction for the show. But one thing that seems certain at this point is that Russell most likely has in fact been sacked. So Christopher Eccleston is rejoicing wherever he is. Stay tuned for more content. There are more videos coming down the pipeline soon. And as for Doctor Who, I won't lie, I'm kind of burned out on it. So you may notice if you've been watching this channel for a while that consistently I've made a Doctor Who video every 2 years, almost exactly. Spring of 2020, 2022, 2024, and now 2026 all had a big Doctor Who video drop. And that wasn't planned, like that. I didn't do that intentionally, it just kind of happened. But don't hold your breath for another giant Doctor Who video in 2028. There are more videos coming down the pipeline. I hope that you enjoy them and have a lovely day.